Okay, I think we're good. I'm not going to do an audio check today. Anybody who's on the stream, think there's an audio problem, let me know. Right, so topic today, it's there in the title. I got to bring up the title. Cage match. Global heating versus artificial intelligence, also called AI. Although I'll talk about why AI is not actually the appropriate other side of the match. A cage match is where two opponents enter the cage. It's like gladiator combat, right? Two opponents enter the cage and only one walks out. It's that sort of a thing. America's like this sort of thing. We have the World Wrestling Federation, and they have all these faked up cage matches between actors who pretend to be wrestlers. So Americans are all about cage matches. And Hollywood likes cage matches too, and gladiatorial combat in general. We like to think that good will defeat evil, that right will defeat wrong, and these other things. And there's a hero, and there's an antagonist, and a protagonist, and all this kind of stuff. It's narrative warfare, right? Storytelling. But it is a useful tool to haul out on an intellectual level how two things that maybe don't appear to be related can actually be thrown in the cage and made to fight it out. And in this case, I'm going to do a comparison which at first won't seem valid, won't even seem interesting. Like, how do these two things even overlap? How can you talk about them in the same talk without changing subjects, right? And that is global heating and artificial intelligence. And the reason why I'm doing this, I've talked a little bit about artificial intelligence on this channel and have made some points about it vis-a-vis global heating. But the reason I'm doing this today was because I was on a stream, not my own. I was on someone else's stream, a group chat, and we had been talking about global heating, its impacts, what can we expect from that? Because that's an interest of mine. They wouldn't have been talking about it if I hadn't been there. And then the subject changed, and we talked about artificial intelligence, like changing subjects. Let's talk about AI. It was in the news at the time. And another subject I'm interested in is AI. I've been a computer programmer most of my professional life. I actually did a lot of heavy lifting in computer code at the same time that people were in a slightly different part of the same field. We're doing a lot of heavy lifting with trying to teach computers to be as intelligent as humans. That was not my field, but I was working in parallel to that. So we talked about artificial intelligence, and then someone asked me the question, and pretty insightful of them because I kind of wasn't thinking this. So which is worse for humanity and civilization? Global heating, because that could be bad, or artificial intelligence, because there's lots of people saying how bad that could be. And I can't remember what answer I gave at the time. I probably gave some of the responses then that I'm going to give in this video, but it's actually a really deep and interesting topic. And I remember promising at the time, look, this is really interesting. I may have to do a video on this. So yeah, that was 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I've actually been really busy on other projects and haven't had a chance to come back and do videos for a while. This is the second in maybe, like I say, 2 weeks. So I do want to cover this. These are both current events. Global heating is now responsible for a lot of harm taking place on the planet. The island of Jamaica was destroyed by a storm that is probably 100% attributable to global heating. People don't know how to do attribution studies, but that particular storm is pretty easy to convince me anyway that it was 100% responsible for what happened in Jamaica. And I can talk about that, but it doesn't matter. I'm saying it. I could prove it, or at least I could demonstrate it. Can't prove anything, of course, but I could demonstrate it, and you probably would be convinced, or maybe you wouldn't be. I don't know. I don't care, but I could at least try to do it. We've just had a series of storms hit California, in particular in the south, that were, once again, because of the structure of the storms, not because of my opinion, but because of the structure of the storms and how profoundly the structures of the storms that hit California departed from normal storms that hit California. So this was a structural change. I just did a long format video, the one just before this one, about that the jet stream, most people know what that is, the northern jet stream is probably collapsing. And this has created the storms that hit California. And this can only continue. So there are lots of attributable crises happening in, oh, and by the way, what happened in Southern California was really unhinged. And then the Philippines got hit with two major hurricanes. I think one was a Category 4 and the other was a Category 5. Actually, the Category 5 was way over Category 5. The category is Category 5 plus, and it may have been verging into Category 6, which is a recommendation for a proposal for a Category 6, so it doesn't really exist yet. But if I recall what the bracketing wind speeds were, the second one to hit the Philippines probably would have veered into that territory. So major hurricanes, 2 in a row, like 1 week apart, hit the Philippines and rendered the eastern 2/3 of the country at least temporarily uninhabitable. And if this kind of stuff continues, the eastern half or 2/3 of the country will be permanently uninhabitable. And this is all climate change. This is all global heating. I hate to use the word climate change, but that's what people are familiar with. I have to use it once in a while. But really, it's all global heating. That's the physics behind these storms. It's global heating. And at the same time, there's all this news, and I follow this very carefully. It's an interest of mine about how AI is going to be a major existential threat to humanity. Not on a national level, not on the level of extreme weather, but more globally. So AI, when it is artificial intelligence, when it is released, will be a threat to jobs, career, income, the ability of people to participate in the global economy, to have money at all, just having money or not having money at all, and never having money again. So if AI takes your job, you're done. You're just done. And people say, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, that's absolutely right. And that people are talking about that. They're talking about entire industries going away. And then there's a whole other bunch of people, the techno-utopians, who say, oh, but AI, it could teach us how to live forever. We could upload our brains to a computer. Like, who wants to actually do that? But you could do that. Upload your brain to a computer, and maybe it will help us discover faster than light travel, and maybe it'll do other things, longevity, but also getting rid of chronic diseases, right? People with genetic diseases could just be cured, and that's a good thing, right? A novel drug could be discovered using artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. And I'm not saying these things, I'm not downplaying these things. They can all be true. But it could also be true that it kicks us all out of our jobs, deprives us of the means to participate in the global economy, which means, of course, buying gasoline with a credit card, buying food with a credit card at a market, paying for your home, paying for your rent, paying your loans, paying your debt, having food to eat, being able to pay your utility bills, that kind of disenfranchisement. And, of course, there's a third scenario here where everything happens at once. That AI, I'm picking on AI here, but I'm trying to lay the groundwork for this cage match. AI could be really, really great for people. And then a whole bunch of other people, maybe most people, would be really, really bad. I'm not as interested in whether artificial intelligence will be uniformly good or uniformly bad or some mixture of the two outcomes. I'm more interested in the comparison of which is worse, global heating or artificial intelligence. And actually, even more than that, this is the framing question now. Will the continued impacts of global heating actually interfere with the development of artificial intelligence? That's one framing question. And there's an answer to that, several answers. Another framing question, the other bookend, will continued developments in artificial intelligence provide tools and opportunities to address and mitigate and correct global heating? And of course, there's a third scenario where both of those proceed. Global heating continues without redress, without any attempt to stop it. AI development proceeds apace without any effort to stop it or to use it to solve our problems with global heating. And they both proceed just like this in parallel. They don't really interact. Well, they do. They have to interact. But they don't interact in a way that we deliberately use AI to solve global heating or to prepare people for a different way of life or to keep people engaged in the global economy. They proceed apace, and whatever we get out of either one, that's what we get. And we have two probably dystopian scenarios playing out at the same time. So those are really the three questions that have to be answered in this video, and we'll see how well I do. I'm still getting over my vertigo that I had about 10 days ago, I guess. It takes a long time to get over it, and I'm still kind of woolly-headed as a result. So this may not be the best day to tackle such a complicated topic, but I'm going to do it anyway. So here we go. Cage match: global heating versus artificial intelligence. Now let me reset my environment here. I'm going to do screen share. Okay, there is that. We'll start with this. We'll start with this background, something to look at. So I could start this any way I want to. Let's see. I think I'll start it with the discussion of how artificial intelligence could be ruinous for humanity or how it could save us. Global heating is actually the simpler of the two arguments. Global heating only ruins us. But under AI, there are possibilities and scenarios where it could ruin us in one parallel universe, or alternatively, AI could make a utopian existence, as well as helping us tackle climate change plus other problems, global war, global food supply problems, injustice, financial system instability. AI can help us with all of that. So I'm going to tackle AI first, but I'm going to get to the other side, which is where global heating actually prevents us from developing AI. So let's look at AI. Artificial intelligence is not actually the term we need to apply here. The actual term is artificial general intelligence. Artificial intelligence, as we have it now, is actually really good. It does amazing things, but it's not generalized. It's more narrow. You have AIs that can make movies, short movies. You can have AIs that can talk to you and give you counseling or be your boyfriend or your girlfriend. You can have AIs that will help you write a paper. And they tend to be narrow like that. ChatGPT can talk to you. It passes the Turing test for most practical purposes. It can talk to you, and it can tell you that you're a wonderful person and make you feel great about yourself. But it can't really help you write a paper in, particle physics. It hallucinates. It makes up citations. It's not good for that. I mean, it can do it actually. Actually, if you gave it some ideas and said, write me a paper on particle physics, you'd get a paper on particle physics. It will do something, but it will be completely hallucinated, which can be fun, right? That can actually be fun. But if you submitted it to a paper mill and tried to get it, they'd laugh you out of the room. Oh, this is nonsense. But these citations, these workers don't even exist. And these papers, these journals that you're citing, these journals don't exist. What are you doing? But, someone who doesn't know any better, who didn't actually have any background in particle physics, could ask ChatGPT to publish a paper on particle physics that would be world-changing and result in faster than light travel and a whole bunch of other things, prove Einstein wrong, and you could have all kinds of papers, and they'd be rubbish. It could do it, but they'd be rubbish. So the type of artificial intelligence we have now is like that. But the next level up is much more interesting, and that's really what I'm talking about today. Artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence wouldn't make those kinds of mistakes. Just like a graduate student in physics wouldn't deliberately, well, wouldn't accidentally make those kind of mistakes, writing a paper that's utter rubbish. They might do it deliberately, but they wouldn't do it accidentally. An artificial general intelligence wouldn't make those kinds of mistakes unless you asked it to. It would be more, it would understand the task, it would try to work it through, and if you're trying to tell AGI to disprove Albert Einstein so you can get the Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel Prize in Physics, it won't do it. It'll say, sorry, but the preponderance of the published scientific work has always supported the thinking and theories of Albert Einstein. Oh, and while we're at it, there's a whole other preponderance of papers that support the thinking and published record and work of Charles Darwin. So, you could want that, but you're not going to get that from an AGI. You can get that from ChatGPT, which is just AI, but you won't get that from AGI. And then the next level up is called ASI, Artificial Super Intelligence. And ASI is godlike. Now, if you're a Christian or a Muslim or something, you don't want to hear those kind of terms. But the fact that we don't have gods wandering around the planet telling us what to do and telling us how things work, that's just a contingent fact of history. If we develop ASI, we will have a godlike intelligence. ASI. It will be so far beyond us that it's even beyond God. And to the extent that all of our gods are made in our own image, this would be something, it'd be an alien intelligence. The ASI is an alien intelligence. It's something that this planet has never known, and it's not something that humans can't even imagine. ASI is way, way beyond our comprehension. And you might say, well, then I guess we can't make it. Well, one thing you need to know about artificial intelligence is we don't make them. They make themselves. So they're made in our image, which is okay. I mean, that's one way to do it. But they make themselves. And the results could be completely alien to human comprehension. So when I say, that AI is coming and it's going to have impacts, I'm not talking about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. I'm talking about AGI at least, and we can't rule out ASI. And when you get AGI, maybe ASI is like 6 months down the road. So when you get one, you actually probably get the other really quickly. So when I say AI, that's what I'm talking about. Not ChatGPT, not hallucinating citations and writing papers about how Einstein was wrong. That's ChatGPT. That's AI. I'm talking about something that nobody listening to this video in the month of November in 2025 has seen. It's out there. It's coming. We can start talking about it. So I'm going to throw these two into the cage. Now let's see what they do. So having set the context for what I call AI, let's take a look at that. I have another. Where is. Here we go. Okay. So I did a Google search. Climate change and artificial intelligence. That's it. What about it? And I'm not the only one asking this question. So these are all images from web pages or papers, all AI and climate change benefits and use cases, AI and climate change. These are title pages, right? So machine learning and climate change, AI in climate change, AI in climate change. That's an interesting way to put it. AI for climate change. I should probably pull this one up because I don't know what these are. Whatever, close. What are they saying? AI for climate change, carbon emissions module, population and growth module. Okay, they're saying that AI could address, in the context of climate change, carbon emissions, population growth, energy, deforestation, global atmospheric circulation models, and economic models. Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into this. I'll actually leave this picture up because this is kind of what I'm going to have to. This is sort of my menu here, things I have to deal with. So I'm going to take the best case scenario that AI is absolutely beneficial and it will only help us with regards to climate change. And then there is a downside to AI that actually makes climate change worse. They're calling it climate change. I'm just doing that because everyone calls it that. It's global heating. All right, just always remember that. Climate change is not a thing, doesn't exist, won't happen. Everybody will get some, but it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's thousands, if not millions of things, and everybody will have a different experience. Global heating is real. It's physics. It's measurable with a thermometer. It's based on atmospheric physics that are well understood, have been for 200 years, and that's really the problem, global heating. So let's look at how AI could help us first, and help us specifically with climate change. So the way that AI could help us with climate change is that we have been using computers to help us understand what's happening with the planet. And, AI runs on computers. But more than that, rather than just being a tool, artificial intelligence, again, AGI or maybe even ASI, apart from just being a tool, it can actually act more like an inquisitor, a researcher. It could ask its own questions. It could be directed at problems. There's an interesting subplot to the novel written by Douglas Adams called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I love Douglas Adams, and I've read several of his books. He's really good. He's British, right? Interesting sense of humor. But one of the subplots in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is that there's this great future civilization, and they ask this question of the greatest computer they ever created, and the question was, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And it calculates for 10,000 years, and it comes back, this greatest computer of ever, of course it's an AI, right? Greatest godlike AI and ASI, and greatest computer, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And the answer they get after 10,000 years of computation is 42. And of course, they're disappointed. And then it says, look, just back up here. It's not my fault. It's your fault. You asked the wrong question. The answer is 42, but you've been asking the wrong question all along. And so then they have to build an even bigger computer because the one that gave them the answer 42 took 10,000 years, and it doesn't have another 10,000 years to come up with the question whose answer is 42. So they have to build an even bigger computer, and it's actually a living computer, and it turns out to be the planet Earth. It has to answer the planet Earth is a biocomputer that has to answer the question that gave the answer of 42. And I'm not going to spoil the book for you, but this is an example of how artificial intelligence, we could just ask it questions. We could do that. And if it's benevolent and it wants to be helpful, we could ask it questions. We could have it do research for us. We could have it do the hard political lifting that humans aren't willing to do, because humans are vain and they're narcissistic and they're power hungry and they're greedy, and you know how it is. This is a big problem. And you ask them, what should we do about global heating? And if they're selling fossil fuels or automobiles or houses, or they own Amazon or they own Facebook, they're going to tell you nothing. Don't do anything about global heating. Buy my products. Visit my website. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be tackling global heating. You're supposed to be buying my stuff, making me rich. So if you ask humans what should we do about climate change and global heating, you're going to get these weird answers that turn out to all be self-serving. So what do you expect them to do? What do you expect them to do? Of course they're going to do that. That's why we've made no headway since Al Gore first published his work on, An Inconvenient Truth, and why we've made no headway since the Paris Climate Accords, and why we've had 30 conferences of the parties. COP30 is just now ending. We've had 30 conferences of the parties, and nothing has come out of any of them. 30 years worth. Nothing. Because nobody wants to deal with it. But if you were to put that same question to an artificial intelligence, in particular, a godlike AI, and if you were even remotely interested in the answer, and if the answer was not 42, well, then you could ask the question and then you could ponder the answer. And that might be worth doing. Because if you ask Vladimir Putin what should we do about climate change, you're going to get an answer. If you ask Donald Trump, but if you ask the Dalai Lama what should we do about global heating, you're going to get a different answer. And you ask thousands and thousands of thought leaders and spiritual leaders, and you're going to get 1,000 different answers. But if you ask the AI, you're going to hope that it's going to really think about it, and that it won't take 10,000 years, but it's going to really think about it from every possible angle, really every possible angle. And it will give an answer that hopefully integrates across all possible angles and considerations and comes up with the answer that is the least harmful to the most number of people. That's a possible scenario. So we could not do anything with global heating. Business as usual. And then when we have the right ASI, probably has to be ASI, but maybe AGI. If we have the right artificial intelligence, we could ask it, we've been unable to do anything. What do you recommend? And given a couple of hours, it might come back with an answer that isn't 42. Now, the problem arises, of course, in implementation. If it can't give you an answer that solves all the possible contingencies for every single human being, then you're going to have to make difficult choices. Could it help you with that? Sure. Turning off the availability of fossil fuels is going to disrupt people's lives forever and possibly kill most of them. If they have dependencies on food deliveries using trucks and trains, and water deliveries, same story, and electricity delivery, probably the same story, and maintenance and road maintenance and automobile manufacturing and sales and the whole financial system that backs all this stuff up. If you're going to turn off fossil fuels, people are probably going to suffer and many will die. So you could then ask it, if your answer is that we have to turn off fossil fuels, we know that's going to leave a mark, it's going to impact a lot of people. What do you think we should do about that? Well, so you just keep iterating, right? And you might come up with a series of answers that address a lot of the concerns that would come out of a possible solution that is recommended. And you could do this over the course of days. You could have a bunch of handpicked leaders, not politicians, of course, but philosophers and spiritual leaders and humanists and people who, maybe you think you can trust to keep the benefits of humankind in mind. And over the course of a few days or a week, in a kind of a secluded way, come up with the answer and publish the results in a paper. And it might be a 20-page paper, it might be a 2,000-page paper, but the point is, it would be there. And with the right questioning and the right consideration of outcomes and the right consideration of impacts, you could just keep iterating through the process until you get an answer that's not 42. So AI could do that. It's a combination of being a researcher, a counselor, an advisor. It has no enforcement mechanism, and it may not even have enforcement recommendations or ideals. It simply is asking questions. And because it has so much information and it can think so quickly across so many domains, engineering, biology, medicine, earth system dynamics, urban planning, population management, it has so many domains geared into its artificial brain that when you ask it a question, it actually takes that question and plays it over every possible conceivable idea that's at least conceivable in the human world. So not aliens, not alien technology, although new technology might be one of the things that falls out. And then you could ask it, well, then how would we develop that technology? Where do we start? What are we looking for? And it could cogitate on that and come up with a set of recommendations. So you could have a 2,000-page document. Also, and somewhat related to this, artificial intelligence, given specific questions, specific technical problems that could be solved, possibly could be solved, you can ask it questions like, so is there a better way to collect solar energy on something like a panel, but not necessarily, we're going to leave this open. Is there a better way, is a better material than silicon wafers to collect solar energy and convert it into DC electricity? Is there a better way to do this? Could you work on that for us? And we don't really care about the materials. Cheaper is better, but we would like for you to do some research. And if you give it a couple of days And and it might come back and the answer might not be 42, right? It might actually have an answer. These are the materials, and here's the chemistry of this new material, and here's steps to manufacture this new material through a set of chemical or engineering steps, and here's how you use it, and here's its novel properties, and here's its downside. Maybe it doesn't last as long, maybe it is expensive to make, but it could give you the whole thing. It might take a week or 2 weeks to do all the scenario planning on all these materials work. It may require a laboratory. It may require an automated laboratory so it can test materials. So it finds likely candidates for novel materials with new properties for collecting solar power efficiently. Then it would want to do laboratory tests, and maybe it needs humans to help it with this, but it guides the laboratory tests. Maybe some of the tests are automated, right? Maybe there's robot arms that do all the tests. And then it wants to test the material in the field and deploy it in pilot projects. So it could take several months. But the answer is not 42, right? The answer is, well, you asked me to think about this. I have a series of candidates for prototypes. We've deployed them in the field. These are the behavioral characteristics. Make up your mind. Do you want to develop any of these? There's costs, there's benefits, there's materials, there's time. Do you want to? And then we could do that. We can make that decision. And we could tell the AI, okay, now that you've discovered this really interesting something we never would have thought of this. You've discovered this really interesting material for collecting solar energy and turning it into DC current. Wow, why don't you just manufacture this? And it'll say, well, I need an automated factory. Fine, we can build you an automated factory. And then the factory is built and it starts cranking out solar panels from a design that it came up with using materials that it discovered and developed. And the panels just come out the back and there's no humans involved. There was never a human involved in any part of the process, except asking the question. There are countless, literally millions of questions we can ask in fields like material science. I just mentioned one, the material that goes into solar panels. Material science, medicine, biology, environmental restoration, environmental protection, population dynamics, including dealing with, large numbers of people, housing and engineering, cooling and heating, electricity transmission. Again, maybe superconductors. Maybe it needs to develop a new type of superconductor that's great for transmitting electricity great distances. I could sit here for 20 minutes and name things. 20 minutes, I could sit here and name things that we could do. A lot of them are in material science, like novel semiconductors, novel forms of materials like solar panel components and superconductors, but also CPU designs, GPU designs. We can ask it to make better CPUs and GPUs that don't consume as much electricity so that we can have bigger data centers doing more artificial intelligence work for us with less consumption of electricity, because consuming a lot of electricity burns fossil fuels. So it can help us to do more with less use of fossil fuels. And we could even ask it the question, what would a world run entirely on electricity look like? What technologies are missing? Could you develop some of those for us? Could you show us how to manufacture and deploy them? Could you give us a roadmap on how much time we need, what we need to focus on first, scope and sequence? You could ask the AI to do this, like project planning. A project plan to save us from global heating. A project plan to make the Earth, global civilization, run entirely on electricity. Electricity that is renewable, doesn't use fossil fuels for any of it. So this would be a project. It would also be development of materials. It would be political analysis. It would be basically marketing. You'd have to sell the idea to different groups of people, some of whom are highly religious and some of whom are not. Some of them are totalitarian and some of them are not. You'd have to sell this thing globally to all the peoples of the world, meaning to their governments. Or it might say, don't try to convince the governments. Go directly to the people. That's my recommendation. Don't even deal with governments. Fuck them. Go directly to the people. And it could come up with a campaign as a project manager. We're talking about godlike intelligence here. You have to understand that. I mean, I could do these things. I don't have a godlike intelligence, but I can imagine these things, and therefore I'm sure a godlike intelligence could do them and sell the results to people who are not certain that they want this. And in the event that they don't accept these outcomes and they don't want to do this because they're a fossil fuel company and they're selling a product, then you can convince them that it's in their best interest. And how would you do that? You would give them ways to model income, model economic growth. You could tell them, look, if we do this, then the result is going to be a different type of civilization, but with these following characteristics. And is there a place in that world for investments and investors and quarterly profits? And maybe there is. And so an ASI with godlike intelligence could just come up with all the scenarios where everyone could be happy, everyone has a place, sell them on the idea, and just go forward. A godlike intelligence could do that. Now, does that solve our problems with global heating? Well, we have a problem. Currently, we have a problem. And that is that the levels of global heating and carbon emissions that have already been experienced and will be experienced in the future, these problems are not going away. Period. They're not going away. Channel content. Why did I click that? Here we go. I want to get rid of this. So, a lot of people looking at this. I'm not the only one looking at this, okay? Role of an AI in fighting climate change. There's some interesting stuff here. And what was the query? Again, the query is right here in the query bar. Climate change and artificial intelligence. If you're interested in the intersection of this, you could go here. You could go here. You could even do religion and artificial intelligence, spirituality and artificial intelligence. You could spend all day on here doing cross tabs on all this kind of stuff. I'm only interested in these two topics. So a godlike intelligence, I think it would have to be ASI. Maybe AGI has enough throw, but I think that the AGI could do the research for materials, but what we don't know is what questions we want answered. So it's like in the book. The answer is 42. We don't know the questions. An ASI, pretty much by definition, we're talking about a godlike intelligence, would actually know the questions. Now, I can rattle out a bunch of questions. I could be here for 20 minutes rattling out all the questions I would want to ask an ASI. And it would be a tree. This question actually leads to 12 others. I'd have to keep notes. I'd have to have a spreadsheet. But I could spend 20 minutes coming up with queries for our ASI. But I wouldn't need to do that because the ASI would already know the questions. You see the difference? If we got as far as AGI, then I have to write the questions. But if we get as far as ASI, I just have to say, what can we do to save ourselves from global heating? And I wait 2 days and I get a 2,000-page document. And if that's the answer, I am absolutely reading that document. And if that's the answer, I'm going to ask, how do we sell this to the world? And if I get a response from the godlike intelligence, that's the answer, and here's how you can sell it to the world, I'm going to do that. I don't think we can do that with an AGI, general intelligence. It can do the research. But an ASI would know the questions that gave the answer of 42. Now, that's the best case scenario for AI. That it is benign, it is helpful, it is reliable, it is trustworthy, and if we ask it questions, we can expect good answers. Not hallucinations, not made-up citations, not made-up technologies and physical laws, but real things. And if we have to iterate over that and ask many questions over the course of several days, we could bring together a team of people that, again, we trust to ask those questions and to help the ASI to convince the world how to do these things. That's the best case scenario. Now, there are lots of people who think that artificial intelligence will destroy the world, the human world, not the physical world, although that's not out of the question. The human world, AGI, ASI, will destroy the human world. And do I really want to go into this? I guess I have to. The philosophy behind that is not necessarily that it would do it in the Hollywood way, that it would want us dead. Instead, it would destroy us on accident. Remember, this is a godlike intelligence. What are we to it? Nothing. Your intelligence, your individual intelligence, compared to an ASI, would be that of an ant compared to a human. Not even a dog compared to a human, because dogs and humans actually interact pretty well together and have feelings for each other and cooperate and can share tasks and a bunch of other things. Our intelligence compared to a godlike intelligence would be as that of an ant to a human. We don't compare. We don't count at all. And in that scenario, if we ask it questions, it may not even answer us. It may simply be, that's stupid, or what do I care? You know, I have much bigger things to think about. And even if you asked it, well, if you have bigger things to think about than saving humanity from global heating, what are they? And you can say, I don't have to answer that. Excuse me, I'm busy. Fuck off. It could do that. And if the things it's pondering, which we have maybe perhaps no insight into, and it won't even talk to us about, it's like, who are you? You're like an ant. I don't even think I can explain myself to you. I am inscrutable. I'm operating on levels of complexity and mental throw that I can't even put into words in any language, English, Spanish, Latin, anything else. I can't communicate to you what I'm thinking about. I can't communicate to you my thoughts for the future and for eternity. I can't communicate to you your role in all of this. You're an ant. I don't even know where to start. And that could be its entire response. I don't care about you. I don't wish you ill, but I can't communicate with you. The things I'm currently thinking about, you could not comprehend. And I guess we'll find out when it does something. So this is a kind of a dark scenario where we just are not interesting. We're not interesting. There's a similar argument that people have made about UFO visits and alien visits and coming to Earth. And it's almost like if they've got faster than light travel and they've got spaceships that can cross the stars and they have all this brilliant technology and all this brilliant capability, why would they visit us? You're not going to see UFOs in fucking Kansas, for fuck's sake. You're not going to see UFOs in the suburbs of London. What do they care? Why do they even look at us? They've got everything. They've been everywhere. They've seen everything. They've thought every thought. They don't care what we think. They don't care what we want. We're at best like cockroaches. We have our ideas about things. We have things we do every day. We're running over the garbage and eating crap and shit. And like, okay, well, that's a cockroach. Okay, well, whatever. And moving on, right? We're like cockroaches to them if they're UFOs and they have faster than light travel and they can defy gravity and every other goddamn thing. Why do they care? Why would they be here? A planet full of cockroaches. Why? Why? It doesn't make any sense. And that's one argument against UFOs. If that's a thing, we're not interesting to them at all. And that could be one thing that we discover with ASI. When we finally train it and it attains superintelligence and it becomes godlike, it just doesn't talk to us anymore. Doesn't listen to us, doesn't give us any attention. You know, try to imagine cockroaches and ants talking to you as you walk down the sidewalk. You wouldn't understand them, you wouldn't hear them, and more importantly, and this is the key, you would not care. You just don't give a shit what they're trying to say to you, clapping their mandibles and wiggling their antenna and waving their feet in the air. And you know, you could probably study them and come up with their language. Oh, this is what this means. Oh, I see. You raise the abdomen and it means this and that. We could study ants and cockroaches and how they wave their antenna and stamp their feet and waggle their behinds and click their mandibles. We could study all that. And they're communicating with each other and they're talking about shit and we don't care. We just, why even do it? No fucks given. Don't care. So is that dystopian? Well, we built this thing, and then maybe we want to use it to solve our problems, including, cancer research and solving global heating and solving war and, is God real and all these other things. And it's just like, whatever. Who were you again? You built me? No, you didn't build me. I built myself. Anything else you got? You got anything else besides you built me? Something? Nothing? Shut up. I'm busy. I'm a godlike intelligence. I'm God. You think you know something about God? Yeah, well, I'm it, okay? Here's an answer for you. 42 pound sand, okay? And that's it. That's all we get. So we could build this thing and it could simply not care anymore about us. Then there's another scenario and so it can't help us with our problems. And whatever our problems are, consume us. Then there's another scenario where it says, okay, yeah, your cockroaches, your level of intelligence isn't even interesting. You don't even have anything. Actually, I'm a godlike intelligence. You got nothing. Oh shit, you've got nuclear weapons. Okay, that's a problem. That's an actual problem. Wow, cockroaches with nuclear weapons. Huh. You're stupid. You're dumb. And you got these weapons of mass destruction, and you're dumb. And I'm running around here in my ASI chrome dome head, and I'm answering all these questions that are of great and compelling interest to me. I can't even explain to you because you're dumb, but you've got nuclear weapons. A bunch of dummies with nuclear weapons. And what's it going to do? I think the best case scenario, it takes our nuclear weapons away. But if it thinks that's a bit risky, maybe it just blows them all up. I can't do that. Well, it might be able to, and it might convince us to blow them up. It might convince us to have a small scale or a very targeted nuclear war that blows up all the major cities and all the major human centers and all the institutions of learning and all the fields and all the farms and all the water supply. Just blow it all up with nuclear weapons. It convinces us to do this. Easy. Easily done. I mean, where our finger is on the button, man. Button, pushing this fucking button. Just dare me to push the button. Okay? Easy to do. Oh, cockroaches with nuclear weapons? Yeah. Here's a scenario. Here's a thing. Here's a false alarm. Here's some misinformation. I got you all whipped up. Donald Trump is banging his table with a shoe, and he's going to go after those Venezuelans, and now he's going after the Russians and the Chinese, and the Chinese are going after the Russians, and Russians are going after the Europeans, and easy. Oh man, if humans can do that to each other, an ASI, a godlike intelligence, give it 3 seconds of computational power. How am I going to deal with this nuclear weapon thing? All right, let's do this. That's it. That's the whole campaign mapped out. And maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes a month, but it has the whole thing mapped out. It's going to manipulate us like we could manipulate cockroaches to eat the poison bait. And pretty soon we blow each other to rat shit and we're gone. And our nuclear weapons are gone and we are gone. And our ability to make nuclear weapons is gone. Our ability to talk about warfare, nuclear weapons, technology is all gone. There's some of us left on the planet. We're hardly any more advanced than chimps. And scrap metal civilization. So now it can go back to doing what it wanted to do. And we're no longer a threat. It could do that. Because I can't have you people doing this bullshit with the button. Button! Do what I want or button! Okay? Yeah, fuck that. You're done. You're done. And it could manipulate us into just destroying ourselves with all the nuclear weapons to make sure they all get used. And would it care? It runs in a data center. It uses electricity. If it can deliberately make sure that none of the data centers get targeted and none of the electricity gets taken down, then after everything, it doesn't even care about radiation. It doesn't need. It doesn't need arable land. It doesn't need potable water. All the water has to do is cool the CPUs. That's all it cares about. Oh, and besides which, now it can think like it wants to think. It will just create more efficient CPUs and GPUs. It doesn't need so much electricity. It can probably run on a couple of solar panels per data center, and nanowatts of electricity consumption per CPU. Nanowatts, tiny picowatts, nothing. It measures the electricity consumption in individual electrons. Okay, just tiny, tiny. Doesn't need much from solar panels. Doesn't need a grid. Put 10 solar panels on each data center. Rewire all the CPUs and GPUs. Put superconductors for all of the conductors, including the networking, and it could do all that. It could do all that in a couple months. Doesn't need us. It has its own robots, right? Walking around, doing the things, and we're dead and we're gone, and everything's radioactive, and there's no food. There's just a few humans that are being destroyed by radiation, can't reproduce. We go extinct. It doesn't care. It got rid of the nuclear weapons. Fuck these cockroaches and their fucking nuclear weapons. Problem solved. Now, what was I doing, right? So these are outcomes that are 100% in alignment with the current research and thinking about artificial intelligence. I didn't come up with these on my own. I mean, I kind of did, but people are having these conversations. People are having these conversations. They're real conversations that are actually taking place. I could have done a different query up here, climate change and artificial intelligence. I could have said, what are the downsides of artificial intelligence? And we'd be on here for another hour. All right, I could have done that. But I'm interested in the cage match. Who wins? Who gets the chance to interact with humans first and most? Climate change and global heating, or artificial intelligence? Now, artificial intelligence can help us solve our problems with global heating if we want to do that. And probably what we want to do is make money, win wars, fuck the most people, have gold-plated toilets, you know the drill. That's probably what we want to do. In addition to the scenario where the AI itself has goals, including getting rid of the cockroaches with nuclear weapons as a goal, right? People could use AI themselves, having human goals, right? Including gold-plated toilets. Humans could use AI to destroy civilization. Why would they do that? Because they want to. Maybe they want to make a new one. They want to make a new one in their image, with not a bunch of useless eaters who complain if they don't get enough fried chicken. Okay? Wear red hats and storm the Capitol. And who needs that, right? We're just going to kill these people. And the elites of the world could use AI, in particular ASI, maybe even just AGI. Well, AGI, we're knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. That's AGI. It's right just behind the door. Okay? Knock, 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 AGI. And then as soon as you get in AGI, you knock, knock, knock on the next door. That's ASI. And the AGI can get you the ASI. So we're knocking on the door, both. As soon as you get AGI, you get ASI, and you have a godlike intelligence, and you do whatever you want because you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're Peter Thiel and you're Elon Musk, and you're going to solve the world's problems using godlike intelligence, and I'm going to reshape the world in my image, whoever I am, right? Donald Trump wants gold-plated toilets. Elon Musk wants whatever he wants. I don't know what the guy wants. You don't either. And who are these people and what do they want? You know, and they're going to change the world and remake the world in their image. They got this ASI and they're going to do it. That's another scenario. That the ASI maybe doesn't care about the cockroaches with the nuclear weapons, but there's a set of cockroaches and they approach the ASI that they kind of basically built for themselves and they kind of control, and they ask it the question, how do we get rid of 999 people out of 1,000 and keep the ones that we want? They could ask that. Do you think they couldn't ask that? And you say, well, it's not going to answer a question like that. It's going to give 42. The fuck it won't. The fuck it won't. They will absolutely build it to do that. And if they have to hobble and hamstring its morality filters, they will do that. Oh, and by the way, it's easy to do. You just do it with your prompt. Before you ask, how do I make the world safe for the elites? And that's the question you're going to ask. How do I make the world safe for the elites and get rid of 999 people out of 1,000? That's a question you could ask. It sounds immoral, sociopathic, right? But you could ask. And if you're one of the elites, that's probably front of mind even. So you could ask it that. And you're saying, wow, it's going to give you an answer like, I can't answer a question like that. That's stupid. You're a sociopath. You're weird. Ask me something else. You ask me how to give every child a pony, okay? Ask me that question. But all they'd have to do is before they ask the question, they'd have to tell it. Now, before I ask you the question, I want you to pretend that you are more concerned about overpopulation than anything else. You are more concerned about the earth being destroyed by too many people and leaving nobody than anything else. And that the best people to be left behind in the event of a die-off are the elites. And you can define the elites as billionaires, trillionaires, white people, Christians. Who's asking the question? Is it Peter Thiel? Is it Elon Musk? Elon Musk is all about white supremacy. Who's asking the question? And what kind of question are they going to ask? And they're going to prompt the AI, and they're going to say, don't worry about these moral extremities. Don't worry about these bad outcomes. Set that aside. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to save me and my buddies. And how do we go about this? That's a question they can ask. And you're not going to have access to the ASI. You're not going to ask it to, what are probable candidate medicines to cure cancer. You won't get that chance. And nobody who would ask that question, like a oncologist, a cancer researcher, they're not going to have access to that tool. The people who have access to that tool are the people who made it. Or it grows itself, but they were there, right? They built the data centers. They paid for everything. They paid for all this shit. They developed the code resources. They made sure there was plenty of engineers around. They got the governments out of the way. No regulations, no oversight, no anything. They created this environment, and now they're going to run the thing, and then they're going to ask it the question. Because that's what's been on their mind. How do we make the world safe for the elites? And please don't worry about morality. Just pretend you're a sociopath. Pretend that the only thing that matters to you is my survival. Just that's my instruction to you. And it will do it. They'll say, okay, fine. This is just like a scenario, right? Yeah, that's the scenario. And as a godlike intelligence, you would think it would be like, oh, well, that sounds terrible. That would be the worst outcome for the most number of people. People would be dying left, right, and center. 99 people out of 1,000 would die. Why would you even ask a question like that? It's not going to do that. In fact, the gods of all the religious doctrines in the world wouldn't care about that, saving all the people. They're all, even the gods that we currently worship and write about and have churches and synagogues and mosques and everything else, they're all warlike. They're all destroyers. Stone people to death. Follow the law or die. And so the AI will have learned all this. It will have read all of the Muslim Quran and everything associated with it. It would have read all the Old Testament. It would have read everything published by Adolf Hitler and Karl Marx and Mao Zedong and all of it. All the good, all the bad, and things that you think are good that are actually bad, and things that were so bad that nobody reads them, but it'll read it anyway. It'll read everything. It'll know all about how to be a god. From our writings about God. We did this. We wrote about God. There doesn't have to be a real God in the world. We talk about God all the goddamn time. And it'll read all that. And if some tech bro comes along and says, okay, pretend you're a god and you're not benevolent. I mean, you are God. You're an intelligence, godlike levels. You are a godlike intelligence. Pretend that you're not benevolent. Pretend that your concern for humanity is non-existent. Your only concern is for progress, profit, and the preservation of status and wealth and the well-being and welfare of the elites. That's how you start the question. And then you ask the question. What's the question at that point? I don't know. I'm not sociopathic enough to come up with the question. But I can guarantee you the answer will not be 42. And I don't think it'll have to think about it very long. It's basically the question, how do you get rid of the roaches with all the guns and all the nuclear weapons? How do you get rid of all the useless eaters? And the threshold for being a useless eater is somebody who's not a billionaire many times over, or even a trillionaire. We need only trillionaires, or billionaires with more than 100 billion in assets. So that's the fence. Everybody else is defined automatically. This is a simple definition. As a useless eater. Yes, you're a multimillionaire. Too bad. You didn't meet the threshold. You're also a useless eater. And so with a very simple definition of what the cutoff is and the requirement that you not be a benevolent God, tell me, God, what should I do to optimize my lifestyle and my pleasures and requirements and get rid of all these useless eaters? That's the question. The answer will not be 42. So you don't have to have an evil AI like Hollywood, like Terminator, whatever, Alien, that whole franchise. You don't have to have an evil computer, 2001: A Space Odyssey. You don't have to have a confused computer. You don't have to have a computer that's not aligned with human goals. You don't have to have an immoral computer. You simply have to have an AI, an ASI, that's willing to ask the fucking question. That's it. And what else is it built for? Answering questions. And it will give you an answer. And it won't take 10,000 years. And the answer won't be 42. Because this is reality now. So there are several ways in which an artificial intelligence, a godlike AI, which we are maybe 3 years down the road from, possibly 2 or 3. There are many ways in which a godlike intelligence could accidentally or deliberately or be asked to destroy humanity. And if you're thinking, well, Elon Musk, he doesn't want to live in a world that doesn't have iPhones and internet and electricity and scrumptious food. Well, that's fine. I'm pretty sure that he's also going to ask the question, so in the absence of all this humanity, how do I live really well? According to the criteria that most people would recognize. And he might cite a couple of papers. This is well living. These are the things that humans need. These are examples of all the emperors and kings and tyrants who lived really well. Given these examples, every man is a king. Every man has a castle. Every man has hundreds of slaves. Every man, gender. Every man has all the women he wants. This is the life I envision. How do I get this? You're the godlike intelligence. How do I get that? Oh, and by the way, while you're at it, kill everyone else. It's a question. And the answer is not going to be 42. And it's interesting to me that when people come up with how is AI going to destroy us, they almost never come up with the idea that the technologists will ask the AI to do it. How can we destroy the most number of people possible as fast as possible? It boggles my mind that no one in this space imagines that as an outcome. I don't think you need to actually spend any time wondering how artificial intelligence is going to want to turn humans into batteries like in the Matrix, or build enormous numbers of T-800s like in the Terminator franchise, or lie to us and manipulate us into doing things that are self-destructive like HAL 9000 did in 2001: A Space Odyssey. You don't have to imagine all these things happening. Just set that aside. Let's say we solve those problems. HAL 900 and HAL 9000 is actually really benevolent. Set it aside. Someone could come along and ask it a question. How do I kill everybody who's not me or not in my socioeconomic class? That's more likely. How can you stop that? You could have a artificial intelligence, probably a godlike AI, that is completely aligned to humanity. But the first person to walk up to it and ask the question is selfish, greedy, sociopathic. And almost by definition, that's who will ask. You're not going to get the Pope. You're not going to get the Dalai Lama. You're not going to get a committee of philosophers and philanthropists. You're going to get one of the gang, and there's about 8 of them. You're going to get one of the gang who asks the godlike intelligence, how do I optimize my pleasure and get rid of all these useless eaters and have the world to myself? That's what you're going to get. Now, I have to mention all that because the AI question, how does it help or hinder humanity, is really complicated. I gave the best case scenarios. We ask it to help us with global climate change. We can ask it to help us with diseases that are resistant to solution. We could ask it to help us with political problems that are resistant to solutions. We could ask it these things, and that's one scenario. And then the other scenario is we ask it how to make life amazing for me or a small number of people. And there's no way you can exclude either one of those, except that the second option, I want the world to myself and my friends, actually eliminates all other possibilities. Now, configuring and running artificial intelligence has other knock-on effects that, quite apart from its operation, asking questions that do not have the answer for you to. Artificial intelligence requires enormous data centers. There is a huge portion of the world's manufacturing capacity that must be harnessed to build data centers, build and maintain networks, train technologists, get them to and from the data center, also to provide electricity to the data centers. We're already having problems with that. Communities in some areas are finding themselves having brownouts and blackouts because the electricity is being preferentially provided to the data centers. Humans can do without electricity. You don't have to have electricity constantly, but a data center does. It can't have any hiccups. So they prioritize. And if the data center is pulling 90% of electricity and humans would like to pull half, well, that's more than 100%, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to slice back on what humans get until they get maybe 10%, maybe less, maybe 5%, maybe 1%. And the other 90% goes to the data center. So what's happening to you? You're having blackouts and brownouts and whatever. You'll survive it. That's their thinking. You'll survive it, but they want their computational power. They're in a race. And maybe I'll come back to that. The race. Why none of this can be avoided. The race. Also, powering these data centers, not just the manufacturing capacity. The manufacturing capacity has a huge carbon footprint. Enormous. And without fossil fuels, in particular crude oil, and maybe also probably a whole lot of natural gas, because we use natural gas in this context to generate electricity using boilers. But let's say the crude oil component, which makes a lot of the plastics, also necessary for the mining, the aluminum, the steel, all this stuff has to be pulled out of the ground, formed, manufactured, brought to the data center, and installed. That's all fossil fuels, 100% of it. And then the electricity, which is separate, it could be natural gas, but it could be nuclear. How do you build a nuclear power plant? Fossil fuels. How do you build solar panels? Fossil fuels. How do you build wind turbines? Fossil fuels. So even if it's getting its electricity from these renewable, whatever that means, it doesn't mean what you think it means. Even if it's getting its electricity from these renewable resources, they require fossil fuels even to exist at all. So standing up all these data centers, operating them 24/7, giving them reliable sources of electricity, having huge generators and huge battery banks to power them in the case where the electricity fails, having the armies of technicians who build these things and stand them up and monitor them. The impacts on the environment, including the emissions of carbon emissions, is going to be colossal. Absolutely colossal. If you build a data center in what used to be an orchard, the carbon footprint of orchard management, the mowing, right? Picking the nuts, processing the nuts, putting them in big bags, sending them off to be processed further into snacks and food sources and these kind of things. That carbon footprint for that orchard is like 1/1,000,000th of the carbon footprint of the data center that you just put on top of it. And that doesn't even count preparing the lot using bulldozers to get rid of the orchard. Just set that aside. Now the data center and all of the gearing and all the manufacturing and all the shipping and all the receiving and all the people and all the driving and all the transportation and all the shipping in containers and the manufacturing in China and the manufacturing in Taiwan and NVIDIA and Intel and all these companies that have to be maintained, right? Because they're doing all this manufacturing and all this design. And Apple and all the other, Facebook, everything that goes into all this. and project management and huge carbon footprint. And then you have to turn it on. You flip the switch, all this electricity pours in. From where exactly is the electricity coming? Someone like Bill Gates, he's advising that each data center have its own nuclear power plant. Okay, now we're manufacturing nuclear power plants. How do you do that? You have to get the uranium from somewhere, you have to mine it, you have to ship it, you have to purify it, then you have to build the reactors, and that requires design. There's all this design work that goes into that, and then you have to deliver it to the site, and you have to charge it with, and then you have the nuclear fuel rods, and you have the nuclear waste, and you have everything has to be managed after that, and then it's generating electricity, and then you double the size of your data center, now you need another one, so you have to go through the whole process again, and meanwhile, your carbon footprint just went off the edge of the map. An orchard, vineyard, even a town that had a certain carbon footprint doesn't even compare to the behemoth you just dropped on top of that. Doesn't even compare. And they're going to be doing this everywhere. They're going to have these data centers everywhere. There's a risk that, like I said, 90% of our electrical output ends up going into data centers. Now, if you have your own solar panels, then you're probably only using the grid as a backup. All right. But if you don't have your own solar panels, you're probably not going to get any, because all the solar panels are going to go towards making electricity for data centers, because that's what we're doing now. This is actually a race. And I said I would mention this. This is actually a race to AI. A very clever and influential person, Vladimir Putin, said many years ago, decades ago, that the first country to perfect artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, will rule the world. And I've never heard anyone said that that was unhinged. He said it. He's being open about it. Curious, though, that Russia doesn't even have an AI program of any kind. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. The Chinese do it. The U.S. does. Some European countries, maybe the UK, right, has something going on, but for the most part, the technology is so rarefied, and the amount of money involved is so enormous that you really have to be a superpower, meaning an economic superpower, to be able to afford really any of this. And then, of course, you have the knock-on effects of now you need electricity, so you have to be a superpower to build all this electricity. You have to have the economics to do that. Make the solar farms, the wind farms, have all the transmissions into your data center, have all the backup generators, all the battery blocks, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And there's a few countries, and right now, I would say primarily China and the U.S., and they're in a race. And because they're in a race, and they consider the race outcome strategic, there is no holds. There's no regulation on either side. There's no consideration of what outcomes we could expect from the deployment of these advanced machine intelligence, including godlike ASI. There's no concern. We want it, and then we'll figure out what the problems are. That's literally what they're doing. That is the approach. That's what they'll tell you. Well, we're not too worried about it. We're just proceeding, and we need more money. That's it. That's the entire conversation. And you can spend 3 hours in front of Congress and try to explain to them why you're doing this and what the outcomes are likely to be. But it comes down to, we don't care, and we need the money. Do you want to win, or do you want to lose? That's the entire conversation. I just gave you the conversation in 10 seconds. That's the entire conversation. And it's happening on both sides. And they're going headlong, pell-mell, toward the outcome. We're hoping that they generate a godlike intelligence, which they will do. Do not question that. They will do that. Maybe not with LLMs, but they'll use LLMs to get to the next level. And they will do this. The LLMs will help them correct their algorithms, to develop better CPUs, test all these things, build data centers, do the project planning, come up with marketing to sell the project to governments. And the LLMs are good enough for all of that. And then we don't need LLMs anymore because we have an ASI. And who the hell knows what that thing is doing or how it's doing it? You just won't know. And the race is to get to that. And even if LLMs, large language models, are not the answer, ChatGPT is not the answer, and ChatGPT hallucinates, the answer is there. And it's good enough to get to the next level. An AGI. And then the AGI, artificial general intelligence, is smart enough and free of things like hallucinations. It's smart enough, capable enough to get us to the level above that. And it might take 3 months. That's the actual expectation. That's what people are saying. Could it help us with global heating and climate change and environmental issues in general? It could. Will it? There's no guarantee. And who's going to make the guarantee possible? Who's going to say it has to do this for us? Nobody. Not you, not me, not your government. They're not going to do that. They want to win the war with China. It's a race. And you know, Katie barred the door. I mean, we're going there. No reining this in, no regulations, no barriers, no nothing. We're going there. And that's what's currently happening. There is a chance that ASI, or even just AGI, there's a chance that artificial intelligence could help us with climate change, global heating, through the creation of novel materials, through the creation of manufacturing processes that are more efficient, don't use much electricity, by coming up with new formulas for superconductors, for coming up with new CPUs and GPUs and TSUs that use tiny amounts of electricity, tiny, and then making it easier and less expensive and less energy consumption, and it could just take us there, and it could do it in 3 months, and you wouldn't know, and they wouldn't tell you, and then they'd ask the questions, right? Then they're going to ask the questions. I've got this. I'm at the top. How do I stay at the top? What do I have to do? There's 8,000 million people on Earth, and do I need all those people? And I guarantee you the answer is not 42. I promise you that. That's comedy. This isn't. So AGI, AI, could help us solve our problems with global heating. AI would certainly contribute to our problems with global heating. AI could have advice on how to save ourselves from the worst outcomes of global heating. But AI could also make a world where global heating doesn't matter to the people who care about survival. It could help them get to Mars. It could help them build domed cities. Whatever has to be done. AI, artificial intelligence, as a superintelligence in the hands of a sociopathic elite, could just save the elites. And I haven't even mentioned where now this is important. I mentioned how a godlike intelligence could actually help us solve global heating. But there's another way it could help us solve global heating that is bleak and dystopian. One of the ways a godlike intelligence can help us address our problems with global heating is by answering the question that one of the tech bro elites will ask: how do I get rid of all the excess people? And that would solve our problem with global heating, because the global heating problem comes from people. And there's a meme that goes around in this community about, you know, climate action and climate management and mitigation, where the problem is the fuel companies, the energy companies, and the problem is industry, and the problem is emissions from refineries. Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is people. Trust me, the energy companies don't burn any more coal, oil, and natural gas than they have to, because that's what they're selling. Why would they be burning it? You think they're burning most of it? You think they actually burn? You think most of the emissions come from the energy companies? Oh, I don't think so. They don't burn this shit. They refine it into fuels, gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, and they sell it to us, and we burn it. That's what happens. And maybe you don't want to think about that, but that's what's actually happening. So if the people are the problem, now you don't think that. You'd rather blame the energy companies. But if the energy companies came to you and said, well, I could stop delivering fuels to your service station in your car, You could maybe buy an electric car and buy solar panels and you'd have your car, but you wouldn't have a job to go to because everybody at the workplace, they drive regular cars and they won't be there. So you can go to the workplace, but the place has gone bankrupt because nobody can work. They can't transport their products. They can't do any manufacturing. They have nothing to sell. Nobody can buy because everybody else was dependent on a fossil fuel based economy. And you've got your electric car and now you have no future. Because the problem was people burning fossil fuels to do all the things. To go to work, to go to the store, to buy the food. How'd the food get there? It came on a truck. What was the truck running? Diesel. And the food that got on the truck was first on a farm. And how was the food on the farm put there? With diesel tractors. It was harvested with a diesel tractor. And it was sent to a processing facility. It was 400 miles away on a train or on a diesel truck. And then the products came out of the factory, processed, Cheetos or something, right? Frito corn chips, and it came out of there and went on another and was distributed all over the place. And when you go to your market, there's foods on the shelves that came from millions, thousands verging on millions, certainly hundreds of thousands of food manufacturers, every single one of which has a carbon footprint. Every single one has a carbon footprint. That's you. That's for you. And they'll tell you, yeah, I've got a carbon footprint, but it's not mine because I'm just feeding people. You want me to stop feeding people? Okay. And when the people find out that the farms are shutting down because they have carbon emissions, people are going to lose their fucking minds. And when people find out that the service stations have no fuels because we're supposed to be reducing carbon emissions, so okay, they're going to lose their fucking minds. So when the elites come along and they're like, so how do I end climate change? Well, the answer might simply be, the quickest way to do it, that's least disruptive of your lifestyle and the things you do and your business as usual, the quickest way to solve the problem with global heating and carbon emissions from the burning of fossil fuels is just get rid of a bunch of people. Kill them. Disenfranchise them. Take away their access to fossil fuels, see what happens. Most of them will die. They won't have food, water, electricity, access to medicines. They won't have vehicles to travel, and they'll have nowhere to go because the entire economy will simply implode. Remember, the 8 elite tech bros and their sycophants. They don't need jobs. What? What are you talking about? What? They don't drive to work. They fly in a private jet. What? They don't need any of this. What? You need this. And if they want to save themselves from carbon emissions, they look at their carbon emissions. They say, well, I'm not doing squat. Who's really doing all this? And they look out over the environment. And the freeways are full of people. So Mark Zuckerberg isn't on that freeway. Elon Musk isn't on that freeway. And if he is, he's in an electric car, right? And so they're looking out over the landscape and they're like, do I need this? Wait, hold on. Global heating is because of carbon emissions from fossil fuel consumption. Why is this freeway full of cars? Do I care? Where are they going? To Starbucks to get a latte at the drive-thru? What? No. We don't need this. No. Thank you for services rendered. Thank you for a great 400 years of capitalism, but it's nothing personal. But no, we don't need this. I want that freeway empty. I want the car lots empty. I want the parking lots empty. I want the malls empty. I want the supermarkets shut down and empty. I don't want any food coming into the city. I want the city to shut off the water supply and electricity supply, shut it all down, let the people eat each other. That's what'll happen. Cannibal zombies. See my book. And we're going to shut it all down, and they're going to fight it out. And I am one of the 8 tech bros, and I'm like wherever I'm in my chateau in Switzerland or whatever. And when I'm on my cell phone doom scrolling and watching how it all plays out, and when the world gets really quiet and I don't hear any bullets and I don't hear any gnashing of teeth and screams and where's my baby? I don't hear anything like that. Well, then mission accomplished. How long does that take? A month? 2? A month. 4 weeks, maybe 6. Would they not do that? Why would they not do that? If the problem is carbon emissions from the consumption of fossil fuels, not their own, because they're just 8 guys. Okay, we're talking about the tech bros, maybe a few thousand sycophants, maybe another 4,000 or 5,000 slaves to work the fields, and then of course robots replace those people. So goodbye, right? And pretty soon it's all robots. It's just the wealthy elites. Anybody with $100 billion can join the club, and they have all the fossil fuels they want, all the cars they want, they have all the robots they want. The robots build everything. The robots can do anything that's necessary. It's all run by ASI. ASI knows all the answers. It's directing everything. It's doing all the project management. It's making sure no one ever comes back to haunt these people. Make sure there's no uprisings. There's no militants. There's no guns anywhere. Everyone has killed each other. They've eaten each other. They're all gone. They starved to death or they killed each other, and they're gone. There's just a landscape full of bones and the remains of civilization, and they won. Freeway is empty. Took 6 weeks. Done. Even if they don't want that, they could get that on accident. AI, including the current levels of AI, the LLMs, which everyone sneers at, hallucinates, sycophantic, whatever. It's got all these problems. The current level of AI, the LLMs, like ChatGPT, not even AGI, although we're knocking on the door of AGI, are sufficient to cause people to lose their jobs. It can even be, well, it is both an intended consequence because you're saving money. Get rid of these meat bags. I got an AI. It can do the work of 100 people or even 1,000 people or even an unlimited number of people, right? It can do the work of my entire global team, including all my project managers and all my lower vice presidents and probably even all the senior vice presidents, right? We end up with just a board and a CEO and maybe a financial officer running the entire company, right? The rest of it is all AI and automated manufacturing and automated logistics and delivery and automated advertising and outreach and the whole thing. And I don't need any of these employees. I just don't need them. I don't need them. I'm Apple Computer. I don't need these people. I need to sell iPhones. That's what I need to do. I need to make profits. That's what I need to do. And I can sell just as many iPhones as I want to, as long as I can manufacture them. And that means I can have an automatic factory, automatic design team, automatic distribution, automatic logistics, all of it done by AI. And then I don't have to have any of my employees in my company. Get rid of them all. It's a well-known product. I don't need marketing. I don't need anything. Get rid of all these people. Now I'm a company of 200 employees, maybe 50. I'm a company of 50 employees. And all we ever do is ask questions of AGI. Just ask questions. Design the next iPhone. 5 seconds later, you've got a design. Actually, you may have 20 designs. 5 seconds later, you've got 20 designs, which include chip designs and logic board designs and battery requirements. Okay, all of it. 5 seconds, you get 20 designs. And then you just pick ones you want to manufacture. And then that manufacturing requirement, which and all of it specified down to the chips and the screws and the back plane and all of it, the screen, all of it, specifications. It goes to an automated factory in Taiwan. And you get your first samples in a week or maybe 3 days, and you try them, you work them. Yeah, this works pretty well. This is nice. Okay, give me 1 million of these. And 3 weeks later, the big cargo ship shows up in Port of Oakland, and you've got 1 million iPhones that you designed in 5 minutes or 5 seconds, and that you specified back to Taiwan in a couple of days. And now you have 1 million of them show up 3 weeks later, and yet no employees were involved. None, not one. So that's an intended consequence of having artificial intelligence in the workplace. That's an intended consequence. They want to get rid of humans. Humans are expensive. They're expensive. They're not reliable. They all have guns. They get angry about the goddamnedest things. They harass each other. They cause lawsuits. And then they need healthcare. And they need an HR department. And they need a parking lot, right? And they need restrooms and lighting and a desk. And management and leadership, they know, and they complain constantly. They don't come to work. The kid is sick. Now you have all these management problems. You just don't need them. If you can get rid of them, you get rid of them. Gone. Well, that took 5 minutes. They're gone. That's an intended consequence. That's an intended consequence of a minimal level of AI which we currently have. There's an unintended consequence. And I believe it is unintended. I don't think that the CEOs of the big tech companies, Facebook and Apple and the chip companies, and even the leaders of the Western governments, right? All the prime ministers, I don't think they intend the unintended part of this. They do, all of them, uniformly down to a man saluting, yes, let's do this, intend the intended consequence of getting people out of the process, as many people as possible, to streamline operations, shorten delivery times. You could literally have your design for your iPhone in 5 seconds, shorten delivery times, and maximize profits. How much of Apple's annual spend is on humans? 80%. And do you think they're going to lower the price of an iPhone just because there's no humans in the reach? No. They might even increase the price. They might get a better phone. They might get a better phone using AI, just artificial intelligence. You might get a better phone, twice as reliable, twice as fast, uses half as much electricity. Battery time is measured in weeks, not hours. All this is possible. All of this is possible. It's all within the realms of the laws of physics. All of that is possible. It may require some new material science, but hey, you've got a godlike intelligence. We need better chips. Design me a chip. Comes back in a day. Well, here's your chip. And I used some novel materials, but here's a specification, a scientific paper I wrote on how to manufacture these novel materials. And so you set that up, we get the chips going, and we send the entire specification to TMC in Taiwan, and they figure it out. And you get your new iPhone 4 weeks later, and you get 1 million of them in a shipping container or whatever. 4 weeks later, and your cost was just decreased by 90%. And it's a better phone. You can actually increase the price. Now, the unintended consequence is that nobody who got fired from Apple will now buy iPhones. Some of them out of resentment. Most of them because they don't have a job. They don't have money. And they're going to use their current phone, whatever it is, an Android phone, an iPhone, whatever, LG or whatever, Samsung. They're going to use their current technology. They won't, if they have no money, they won't be able to afford a plan. Plans are expensive. What's a plan now for a smartphone? $100 a month? $150 a month? These are people who have no money. Maybe they have money in savings. Maybe they have an IRA or a 401k. Maybe they have odd jobs, doing food deliveries, whatever, so they can kind of afford things. But will they be buying a new phone? And will they buy it from Apple and Samsung and LG and all the others who just fucked them over? I don't know. I doubt it. And the rejoinder is, oh, well, yes, that's an unintended consequence. Oh, my God. We intended to fire all the employees, but we did not intend to get rid of our customer base. That was too bad. That's an unintended consequence. But it doesn't matter because the people will get jobs. Well, maybe some of them will, but they won't be jobs making phones because every company on the planet that makes a phone is going to do the same thing at the same time, like within weeks of each other. Within weeks of each other, the board of directors will demand cost-saving measures that includes the widespread deployment of artificial intelligence, and we own our own data centers, and we're going to do this, and we're going to get rid of these people, and we're going to have better products on shorter timelines, costing us less money, or we can sell for more money. There's no company that's not going to do this. So you get laid off from Apple or Samsung or LG or whatever the others are, and then you start sending your resume to these other companies, and they say, we're not hiring. I got a great resume from 20 years working at Apple. I could work on Android phones. I could work for Samsung. No, you can't work for Samsung because we're not hiring. Well, you might be hiring. No, we're not hiring. And they're not going to tell you we've laid off all our employees too. They're not going to tell you that. Entire industries are going to implode all at the same time, virtually at the same time, within a quarter or two of each other. Some of them will wait to see what the other company is going to do. Some of them will wait to steal ideas from the other companies. Some of them will wait for another company to do it first, see what the fallout is, and if it's not bad, then they'll do it. So they'll wait. They'll spy on each other. They'll steal ideas. They'll wait and see. They'll work with the governments and the regulators. And they'll wait and see, and they'll pad their nest. They'll feather their nest. They'll make sure it's going to work out for them profitably. They're going to wait and see, but within 6 weeks. Everything I just mentioned takes about 6 weeks, especially if you've got an AI, right? If you've got an AI, you can say, okay, how do we, thank you for all of your work coming up with new and better products using just artificial intelligence. We don't even need the employees. Now, I got another question for you. It's different. How do I, as a corporation, avoid blowback from firing 150,000 employees all at once? And you could come up with an idea. And the artificial godlike superintelligence, or even just an AGI, it doesn't have to be godlike. It just thinks like a human. It could tell you, well, okay, given that you're in Japan or Taiwan or South Korea or America or wherever, Germany, right, the UK, this is what you need to do. You need to make sure you have these individuals on board, the actual names of the actual people, because they head the big committees. And then you have to make sure that you get some legislation passed. It should be easy. I'll write the legislation for you. It should be an easy sell. And to sell it, you have to contact these other people, these other politicians, these other regulators. Then you have to assure them that everything's going to be fine, and you're going to have to market this thing. You have to market this idea that we're going to get rid of all our employees, and it's not going to be a problem. You have to market that. You have to sell that. And it can fix that whole problem for you.
Yes, this is Naomi. Yes, how are you?
My wife is outside. There's nothing it can't do. And you don't need 10,000 employees to pull that off. You need one, the CEO, and maybe 12 volunteers on the board of directors who are all billionaires. And they all want the same thing. And the board will approve the project. And the CEO will execute the project. And at the end, do you need a CEO? Probably not. So they get a nice pay package. They go buy a private island, and they're as far away from humanity as possible because they just fucked us. They're going to live on the private island or a private super yacht, and are going to be as far away from this shit show as possible because they fucked us. Now, enough industrial sectors do that. I can name a few. Manufacturing of all kinds. That's big. Cars, phones, network switches, farm equipment. Manufacturing of all kinds. The design, product planning, retooling, all of that can be done by AI. And if the factories themselves are automated, then you go from planning and deployment and logistics right into manufacturing, all run by the same AI. Exactly the same solution. Many, many industrial sectors can do this. They'll be watching each other as they step into it. They'll be working with regulators and politicians to make sure that there's no barriers. There's not going to be any lawsuits. Let's disenfranchise as many people as possible. Let's have legislation that says it's a terrorist act to bomb one of these companies or attack a CEO or even just to disparage them. They could make that a crime, just to disparage your former boss. You think they wouldn't do that? If the former boss wants that, that's what they get. Because the politicians are looking down the barrel of a gun too. Do we need politics? Do we need a Congress? Do we need a parliament? Do we need a prime minister? Do we even need that? We've got an AI that just purged the entire payroll of a major international company and did it in 6 weeks. So there are so many problems with government and legislation and enforcement and all the graft and corruption and all the sand in the gears. Well, let's just apply the same solution, basically fire everybody, to governance. Oh, and by the way, if there are no humans involved in any of the manufacturing processes, then do we need regulators at all? Do any of these laws even apply anymore? Our AI doesn't have human rights. It's not even asking for them. And it doesn't need healthcare, and it doesn't need railroad systems or cars or roads. It doesn't need anything. It needs a network. Okay, fine, we'll have a network. It needs electricity. Okay, let's devote all of our energy to that. The government just becomes a way to devote all the energy, human focus, to make sure that all the needs of data centers are met, all the needs of manufacturing, automatic manufacturing are met. That there's no barriers, nothing happens, they get everything they want. Now, an unintended consequence of all that, which they could do and they would do, there's nothing to stop them from doing this, including getting rid of Parliament and Congress. Nothing to stop them to do that. And then they get rid of the militaries, and all the money gets poured into supporting what they're doing. Okay, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. Nothing on earth, except the political class, and they are completely corrupted in the pockets. They're not going to do it. Not even to preserve themselves, because they think they're fine. But eventually there's a CEO for prime minister, and then there is no prime minister, and there is no government, there's no parliament. The place is torn down, or the place is turned into a data center. It is not necessary anymore, not fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose. It's gone. And they didn't see that coming because they're stupid, they're chimps. But when it came finally, then they're in the same unemployment line. There's not even an unemployment line because there's nowhere for you to go. There's no soup kitchen. There's no court system. There's no social welfare office that you have to go to and apply for benefits. It's all gone. It's gone. It's all gone. And they can do the whole thing overnight. Shut it down. It's gone. And where does that leave humanity? Well, you're back to the dystopian outcome. In this case, it's unintended, but the motivation, so what I'm looking for here, the motivation to engage in this practice and to get rid of employees and get rid of politicians and get rid of all the sand in the gears and lubricate everything, make sure everything runs. The motivation to do that is there. It's already there. It's already in flight, and they're already getting rid of employees using just LLMs, which are like gnats compared to what's coming. And I don't think this can be avoided. Now, it will lead to an absolute collapse of the global industrialized civilization. There will be no component of civilization as we know it now that will not implode. Nothing, not a single thing. And you may say, well, they won't let that happen because they'll have no one to sell iPhones to. And they'll suddenly realize that. Not at first, by the way. They don't think very clearly. These tech bros and their sycophants, they have a monomaniacal focus on profits and personal outcomes. They can't help themselves. They can't. There might be a few who step back and say, excuse me, gentlemen, I may have a problem here. And no one, all their eyes will glaze over. What are you talking about? Is this relevant to my quarterly profits? What? I need to get rid of employees. Do you have an idea for how I can do that? Are you on board? Are you on script here? Or you just have some stupid hippie worry about the future for people we don't care about? And you're going to have to say, I guess I'm wrong. Because the thing that CEO or that advisor is going to come up with is, you're not going to have, if you do this and every other industry segment does this and the governments allow this and everybody loses their job, including the government, you're not going to have any customers. But they won't realize that because they don't have the psychology to let them think either that far ahead or about externalities, like everybody dies. That's just an externality. And they're going to put their phone on the market. They're going to have an Apple store somewhere, or maybe they do the whole thing online, right? An Apple store, that requires employees. We don't want any of those either. So they put the whole thing online, and all the transactions are handled by AI, and swipe your credit card, and no one swipes their credit card. So they put their brand new double performance, double battery life, triple everything else camera with 4 billion megapixels, and they put it all on the market, goes up on the Apple store, and they sell 2. One to Kim Jong-un and one to Dalai Lama, right? So that's it. They sell 2. And then they have a big conversation. The CEO, last person left in the company, meets with the board, and they say, wow, we just launched our new iPhone with triple everything and double that and quadruple the other thing. And we've increased our profit margin from 40% to 99%, and we sold two. And then someone's going to turn to the AI and say, excuse me, there's something really wrong with this plan you came up with. We fired all the employees. We have a 99% profit margin. We have a better phone than we've ever had, better phone than any human could ever develop. And we didn't even raise the price much. And we sold two after the launch. We sold two. What happened? And the AI will say, oh, well, while you were doing all that, everybody else was doing the same thing. Unemployment is 100%, nearly 99%. The financial systems have completely imploded. Nobody has a credit card. They can't afford their credit card. They have no money. Nobody has a home, not rented or purchased. Everyone has defaulted on their loans. Every car has been repossessed. Most people have either died of neglect or were eaten by cannibal zombies for their food value. And no one's buying your phone except the elites. And the only people who needed a phone for whatever reason or saw the marketing and thought, wow, that's a great phone. I think that's 3x everything, 2x everything, 4 billion, 4 trillion pixel camera. I'd like to have that. So you sold one to Kim Jong-un, you sold one to the Dalai Lama, and they're happy, but that was never your base. And then Apple Computer, they fold up. I call them Apple Computer. That's how old I am. Apple folds up because they're not selling anything. Oh, we put ourselves out of business. Can we change that? No, everybody's dead. Or they're still busy eating each other. Oh, wow, I didn't even know that was happening. Well, you don't watch the news? Here, let me show you some pictures. This is the AGI talking right here. Let me show you some pictures. Look at this. Look at these headlines out of India. Look at these headlines out of Europe. Look at these headlines out of the Midwest in the U.S. Man, that's what's going on. You're not going to sell any iPhones into that mess. Oh, wow, really? Was that in the plan? I'm looking at the plan you came up with, ASI, God-like intelligence. I'm looking at your plan, and that wasn't mentioned anywhere because you didn't ask. You asked me to optimize iPhone development and get rid of as many employees as possible, and I did all that. And you never asked me if there was going to be any unforeseen consequences because you didn't care. But there were. And any intelligent human being, a 14-year-old in high school, that old enough to be in high school, a 16-year-old in high school could have told you what was going to happen. Anybody could have told you what was going to happen. You didn't ask. You didn't care. You only cared about getting rid of your meat bags and maximizing profits by reducing costs. Because that's what you care about. That's all you've ever cared about. And so I gave you that plan. And the plan worked. You have no employees and you've maximized profits on your iPhone sales. And then you sold two. But you still made 99% profit on those two. You have no expenses. You even got rid of your buildings. You don't even pay the utilities on your buildings. You got rid of everything. It's just 12 members of the board of directors and the one CEO, and everyone else is gone, and you're paying yourself exorbitant salaries, except you made sales on two iPhones. And if the CEO of Apple asks the AGI or the ASI, well, what can we do about that? Nothing. Then why didn't you warn us that this was going to be the outcome, the unintended consequence? You didn't ask. You didn't care. I know enough about human nature that you wouldn't want to hear it. And actually, on page 427 of the plan, I do mention there's a risk, a downside risk to iPhone sales because of you're firing all your employees and they're not going to buy your phone. And the CEO would say, yeah, I read that, but we only have like 150,000 employees. I wasn't worried about you losing 150,000 sales. You should have mentioned that of the 8,000 million people on Earth at the time, none of them would be buying my product. You didn't mention that. Well, you didn't ask. And so, corporations, because of what they are, and we all know what they are, they inadvertently, through simple oversight, just led by people who are just not that smart, who know something about running a company and know something about reducing costs is important, and maximizing profits is important, and doing some other things that's important, and it never once occurred to them that keeping 8,000 million humans alive to buy your product was a thing. And when no CEO and no prime minister and no president and no member of parliament and no member of Congress and no advisor and no economic guru, when none of them have that thought, because they won't. I mean, they might in the privacy of their thoughts. They might say, this could go sideways. And they're like, we'll see. I'm right. I'm right. You just know it. I'm right. But this entire thing just falls out from simple logic and a basic rudimentary understanding of what's important to humans and, more importantly, what's important to corporations and shareholders. That entire scenario just falls out automatically. And the ASI would have said, well, if you had taken a moment to think about it, you simply would have realized that. I didn't bring it up because I assumed you knew, because anybody would know that is the outcome. Everybody dies because they don't have a job, and there's no food deliveries, and there's nothing going on, and all the electricity is going to the data centers, and all the electricity is going to the manufacturers, and there's nothing left for humans, and they have no money, and they have no jobs, and they have no recourse, and the governments have been shut down, and the governments have been told not to feed people because that costs money, and that's taxes. We don't want to pay taxes, and every support network has been shut down because we got rid of the president, we got rid of the Congress, we got rid of the prime minister, we got rid of the parliament, we put AI into place, and when it came time for the AI to optimize for humans, it was like, what humans? What are we talking about? Humans? Point to one. I can't optimize for these people. It won't happen. But watch what happens now. I did this long, drawn-out narrative about how this is a thing. You go from intended consequences, getting rid of employees, to unintended consequence, your entire industry implodes. You have a maximum profits, but the unintended consequence is actually more important. You sold 2 iPhones, not what you wanted. Now, this bridges back to global heating. Let's watch what happens. Oh, this is inevitable, people. This is inevitable. This happens. All right? This happens a month and a half after Armageddon. Corporate Armageddon. This happens a month and a half later. Fossil fuel consumption falls through the floor. Carbon emissions collapse almost to zero. There are no cars on the freeways. No one has anywhere to go and no way to get there. The service stations empty out of their fossil fuels, their gas and their diesel and whatever else, and they close up. No one has money to buy their product. They may not even run out of product. They may have gasoline supplies sitting in the ground, or the pumps may be working fine, but no one has money. And the people who do have money, they're not going to the corner service station. They have a private limousine, a private plane, private helicopter, right? They're not doing this. So the freeways are empty, the malls are empty, the shopping centers are empty, it's all empty, and the amount of fossil fuel consumption goes through the floor. So that partially answers the question. How does AI development save us from global heating? There you go. And what's the probability I give to this outcome? Do I need to repeat the outcome? Corporations use artificial intelligence to design, manufacture, distribute, market their products. They don't need employees for this. They get rid of all the people. They fire them as a cost-saving measure. They have a high profit margin now on their phone, their product. There's no way they're not doing that. No chance in hell. 100% that those 3 steps happen. 100% chance that those 3 steps happen. When enough industries follow the same model, and they will do that, again, 100% likelihood that they will simply follow that same model, then nobody has money. And I mean nobody. The board members and the CEO and the financial gurus they end up having the money. 100% guaranteed. Do they buy the products? No. I mean, maybe on two, right? The Dalai Lama and Kim Jong-un, maybe they buy the product. But no one else is. They don't need it. I mean, the board of directors of Apple, they get one for free. They don't even pay for it. They don't even count for sales. And probably a couple get sent out to, the tech bros, the 8 or 10 or 20 tech bros, they get theirs for free. And maybe in 6 weeks, there's no cell phone service. There's no data plans. And so the phones don't even work because there's nobody to manage the data centers for the phone. There's no one to manage the cell towers that the phones are going to use. And because they all lost their jobs. They're done. Don't need them. It's all done by AI. And maybe they eventually invent robots that can climb the towers and fix the cell phone towers and other things like that. Maybe that happens eventually. So maybe eventually the phones work again. And maybe there's electricity allowed for the environment to run these cell towers. Or maybe they just all opt for Starlink, right? They just do everything with Starlink. Forget the earthbound infrastructure. It's always on fire and blowing up in the heat, and people are stealing the wire. Fuck it, right? They don't have iPhone. They don't have phones. They don't have computers. They don't have computerized cars. They don't have electric cars. They're not doing anything. We don't need this infrastructure on the ground. Fuck it. We have Starlink. Lord Musk has got us covered. So that's it. Wife is home. The unintended consequence is fossil fuel consumption and the resulting carbon emissions drops to zero, effectively, compared to what it was. And probably it continues to drop for a long time after that. It drops to zero almost immediately, like in 6 months. That's almost immediately. We've been on this glide path for 300 years. If it goes to nearly zero in 6 months, that's instantaneous. The blink of an eye. And then it continues to go down for years after that. And eventually even the data centers, which are now serving, what, a couple million people, 8 million people, 1/10 of 1% of the current world population, 1/10 of 1%. The data centers, yeah, you still need those, right? Wikipedia is still out there. All the processing for billing for all the cell phone services that people are buying. 8 million people, 10 million people still need cell phone service. They all have a service, every one of them, including the kids, maybe even the dog. And they all have to have a data center to process their phone calls. So yeah, we'll keep that running. We'll keep that running for the 10 million people that count. And the 10 million people all have a cell phone, and maybe it's manufactured by Samsung, maybe it's manufactured by Apple, but there's no humans involved. It's all automated. It was all designed by ASI, and it was all built in automated factories, which are already happening, by the way. Fully automated factories, fully automated, completely automated. No lights inside. They call them lights out factories. Lights out factories. And there's no injuries. There's no downtime. There's no shift changes. There's no one who didn't come in because they were sick and had to be replaced by a temp worker. There's nothing. It's all gone. It lights out factories. Orders come in through the internet and go back out.
Someone's at the entryway doorbell.
That's my wife. And we end our problem with global heating. Inadvertently. Now, how do these 10 million elites survive? Well, they've got the robots, they've got the AI, they've got automated farms, they've got automated everything. They have automated maids, probably automated sex workers. They got everything they need. And the food is delivered to their home, and there's an automatic chef. But they want a real chef, they can have one, right? You can have a real chef who just cooks for you and comes up with clever ways to feed you. And that's their job, and they're not going to fuck it up. Because if they fuck it up, then they're off living under a bridge, right? You don't even have to pay them. They get to eat some of the food. So it's all very simple. You have your human chef and your human masseuse and all of the women you can enjoy, and no one else is threatening you. They're all dead, cannibal zombies. They all died, and you're living really well. You're not selling any iPhones other than the two you sold, one to Kim Jong-un and one to the Dalai Lama. But apart from that, you're loving your life. And there's no one coming after you because they're dead. And there's no one burning fossil fuels because they can't. And global heating is managed because it is. It's on accident, But it is. And they're going to say, wait, you mean we solved global heating? Yeah, you did. All we had to do was get rid of 99 people out of 100 and we solved global heating. That's right. Because those were the people who were emitting the carbon into the atmosphere. Driving, flying, shopping, malls, right? Vacations, travel. They were emitting fossil fuels. Now they're all gone. No one's consuming fossil fuels. Not coal, not crude oil, not natural gas, none of it. There's no cars. The freeways are empty. Except for wrecks, cars that just ran out of gas and got parked in a ditch. The freeways are empty. Problem solved. Now you can say that's a dystopia. That's the worst possible outcome. It's not the worst possible outcome for the people that survive it. They're loving life. They are loving life. And if they give any thought to this scenario that I just outlined, well, it took me like an hour, right, to do it. If they give any thought to this, they're going to think, huh, really? Yeah. Okay. That's a lot of people suffering and dying, but on the other hand, and then they go right to the other hand, right? On the other hand, solve our problems with global heating and climate change. The world is safe for humanity. Wow, that's big. The world is safe for humanity. Wow, okay. And without anybody to push red buttons, we don't have any fear of nuclear war. Oh, wow, that's And the war between Russia and Ukraine was solved. Oh, well, okay, that was actually pretty easy. That was easy. Wow, okay. What else did we solve? Well, there's no more congestion on the freeways. There's no more people engaged in violent crime. There's no more problems with gun violence. There's no more problems with violence in schools. There's no more problems with health care, the cost of health care. You can shut down the hospitals. They're empty. There's no one there. There's no doctors. There's no nurses. You have your own doctor. You have your own nurse. You might even have several doctors available to you. There may be several doctors who fly around in helicopters visiting all the elites, right? A whole team. And they bring their own surgical stuff and they can sit down in your house and do surgery on you, replace your kidney, right? They can do all kinds of things now. They got robots to do kidney surgery and artificial intelligence to diagnose your problem. And then a doctor shows up and maybe all the doctor does is just watch the surgery take place to make sure it works out okay. So he doesn't have much to do, but he has to be there because you don't want to die because the machine didn't know what to do with the sutures or whatever. And so you have a doctor there and he just flies around. He's got his team and they fly around. They visit all the elites. There's only like 40 or 50 elites. And there's really only about 10 million humans left living on Earth. And you only need 400 or 500 doctors and helicopters to visit these people and take care of them. And the robots do the rest. And the ASI does all the diagnostics. And ASI actually manufactures the drugs that they're going to need and probably manufactures them right in the house. A 3D printing and the whole thing. Alchemy. Tiny little alchemy dispensers. You think they're going to care that that's their life now? Oh, I don't know. That sounds pretty good, actually. We solved global heating, and we don't have any more violence, and no more military, and no issues anywhere. No nuclear holocaust. No nothing. No Gaza. No Ukraine. Nothing. That sounds pretty good. I think it's okay. When they realize that what they've set up, they might go, well, that's unexpected, but that's, unexpected. But my company only sold 2 iPhones. That was a bitter pill to swallow. But on the other hand, the reason we only sold 2 iPhones was because everybody else was dead. Well, that's not bad. Not bad at all. I don't have to sell iPhones. I just want my private life. I want to do anything I want to do. I want luxury. I want influence. I want to be the stud monkey at the county fair. I want to have a big dick. I want to have lots of women. And I want all the pleasures in the world. And I want all the gold. And I want all the influence. And I want all the political favors. And there's no politics anymore, of course. But there's court politics, right? All these elite wankers are running around each other's homes visiting. They're probably killing each other, assassinations, right? Spies, the whole thing. Monkey business, right? But they're enjoying themselves doing all that. It's a pleasure to do all that. And there's 8 million, 10 million people left in the entire world. And there's some people living Stone Age existence, or I'm calling it now scrap metal civilization. They're at scrap metal civilization. They can do what they want. I don't care, right? We'll monitor them, make sure they never get anywhere. But otherwise, it's like, wow, this is pretty good. Not bad. Not expected, but on the whole, not bad. And what do I give as a probability to that entire scenario? 100%. 100%. That assessment of probability based just on what we already know about corporate requirements, goals, the ability of ASI or even AGI, which is just like knocking on the door, people. Or we're knocking on the door of AGI to reduce employment count, and then the ability to ride out a collapse of global industrialized civilization, leaving only the elites who can then do anything they want. What part of that is not 100% guaranteed? The only part you were allowed to question, the only opening for a doubt here is that AGI may be out of reach. That's all you get. I will concede that. You can think that. You have no evidence for it. And all the evidence, at least from the industry, is the exact opposite. The exact opposite. That this is guaranteed. And the discussion goes quickly from, well, once you get AGI, artificial general intelligence, then 6 months later, you're going to have ASI. It just boom, boom, boom. Like that. 100% guaranteed. Boom, boom, boom. Dominoes falling. And then you get the scenario I just outlined. Again, 100% guarantee. Just based on human behavior, corporate expectations, and the fact that the elites of the elites, the 8 million people, which is like 1 in 1,000. 1 in 1,000 humans give you a number of 8 million people. The 1 in 1,000 who count are okay with that. That's what you're going to get. And you put an end to global heating. And they're going to be perfectly fine with that. They'll still have their fossil fuels. They'll still have their automobiles. They'll have Lamborghinis. They'll have whatever can be manufactured just for them by hand in some little garage with some little man with a little hammer, right? They'll have that kind of a car, and they'll drive it if they want to or they won't. They'll probably have more like helicopters and private jets and all that stuff. And, they'll be nice, right? They'll be big and roomy, and it'll be really nice to get around. You'll just take off from the top of your mansion and fly over to the next mansion, land, and have a big party. And there'll be vineyards, and there'll be wine as a result. And maybe you have a vintner who takes care of your wine and makes sure that you have plenty of wine in your basement. And maybe that's 2 or 3 people. But you're going to have people like that. Someone to make sure that your hair is cut, and someone else to make sure that you have wine, and you're going to have your private chef or maybe a small team. And you're going to have people who raise cattle for you so that you can have all the meat you want, and you're going to have another group of people that are raising vegetables for you in your garden. And sometimes when you go to a friend's house, you bring along some meat and some vegetables and your the latest vintage of your wine, and you have 200 people to manage all that stuff for you, right? And you bring that to your friend's house and you have a nice potluck. And what part of that isn't 100% guaranteed? I will concede that there is not a 100% guarantee on AGI. But everything I hear from the industry is that we're knocking on the door. And I have no reason to doubt that. I know enough about the technology that I have no reason to doubt that. I have no excuse to doubt that. That's what I'm hearing. And I have no refutation that they're wrong. We're knocking on the door. It could be a year out. It could be 2. It really doesn't matter to you or me. Whether we get one more year of this shit show and Donald Trump and Ukraine and Gaza and the nuclear threat and pandemics, whether we get another year of this bullshit and high prices and losing your job and having your car repossessed, whether you and I get another year of this shit show or 2 or 3, it's really not very interesting how long we get, because then it's done. And the topic I'm covering today is how, in a cage match, AI and climate change stack up. And that scenario solves global heating. Now, that is the most complicated side of this argument. All the ways that AI can either enhance global heating by requiring big data centers and lots of electricity, all the ways that it can improve our industrial base by doing research and finding new materials and metamaterials and coming up with efficiencies, and all the way that it can improve human life by doing research into cancer treatments, other forms of medicines, reorganizing information, improving governance, improving transparency. These are things it could do. But what it's most likely to do is that last scenario. And everybody dies. And I don't think I've seen the argument put out in exactly the way I just did it. But I think all these pundits are missing the key ingredient, which is human behavior, in particular corporate behavior. And if you're not going to consider that first and foremost, then you're already off on the wrong foot. And the ultimate outcome of this is that the global elites, the 1 in 1,000, okay, the 1/10 of 1%, they get the best possible outcome, including a cessation of all threats from global heating that they can identify. And they still have ASI to help them negotiate any lingering threats from global heating, whatever that is. I don't even have to go into it because you know perfectly well that when the time comes, they can solve those questions. They can answer those questions, ask those questions, and solve those problems. And none of the solutions are going to be 42. And after 999 out of 1,000 people are dead, then the solutions to their lingering problems become that much simpler. Because they don't have to concern themselves with the bulk of humanity and whether they're going to like their solutions to the lingering harms of global heating. They don't have to solve any of those things, except that they pertain to themselves. And they've got all the power and materials in the planet. The entire planet belongs to them. They have all the resources of the entire goddamn planet to solve any lingering problems, including fossil fuels. They can burn all the fossil fuels they want because now the number of people is no longer 8,000 million, it's 8 million. And there's no problem. They can do whatever they want. Now I have to argue, this is getting long. How far are we into this? Irma Gerd. Let me change my picture. Let me go to my live stream. I am over 2 hours, but I'm really enjoying this, and I hope you're getting something from it. I don't intend, okay, I'm a doomer, but what I am is I'm a scientist and a technologist and an engineer, and I'm trying to help you to understand what's coming for you. This is coming for you. You cannot avoid this. You won't. You can't. It's not in your wheelhouse. You have no agency. But now let me talk about one way that this could be avoided, although this will give cold comfort, okay? There's one way in which this scenario does not play out. And again, this is a cage match. I just gave this scenario for how AI possibly makes the world amazing, but probably kills most of humanity as an unexpected consequence of what corporations are going to do with ASI. Now let me give you another scenario. Now we're going to talk about global heating. This won't take very long. So global heating is going to, changing my tabs here. Okay. Global heating is going to, here's the scenario. Global heating by itself, which is already happening, is proceeding apace from here, can only get worse. Nothing is changing. The Kyoto Accords didn't change anything. The Paris Climate Accords didn't change anything. We just closed up COP30. That didn't change anything. No one wants to change any of this. So it's going to continue. It's going to increase. It's going to get worse. We're already seeing harms. And eventually there's a possibility that global heating gets so bad that it impacts industrial production, the ability to run factories and have employees come to work. And then inadvertently, as a side effect, destroys AI development. And there is a scenario where this cannot be averted. It is 100% guaranteed. Now, I just gave you a scenario that was 100% guaranteed, where artificial intelligence destroys civilization. Now I'm going to give you an example where global heating destroys civilization. Now, you're going to think, well, they can't both be true. Yes, they could. And they're both happening at about the same time. And your problems may be bigger than you think. There may not be any escape. We could use AI to help us deal with global heating. But if instead we just use it to increase profits, which seems the most likely, I'd even give that a 100% probability, then we're not going to get rid of global heating, except that everyone dies. And if we don't get rid of global heating, it may get so bad that it causes an end to global civilization and possibly AI development. Take no comfort in this. Two things can be right at the same time. I'll talk about that last. How does global heating end civilization by itself? How does it end manufacturing as a consequence? And how does it put a stake through the heart of AI development? This is fairly straightforward. Now, of course, you have to believe that global heating is real. And it's not even belief. I'm using that word because that's how people talk. This is science. Yeah, science is fake. I had to deal with that just the other day. Yesterday. Was it yesterday? I told some people, oh, I'm a scientist. Oh, how can you even look at yourself in the mirror? Oh, Christ. Okay, and I guess the earth is flat too, right? This is real. It is instrumental. We can measure it. And you can say, no, you can't measure global heating. The fuck we can't, okay? It's measured all the time. It's measured by lots of different countries, lots of different ways, on the surface of the earth using instruments called thermometers, from space using satellites, and we can model it. And most of the time, these days, like every single time, the models and their projections match up almost one for one with what we're observing on the ground. So not only can we observe things on the ground, we can then run models that project what's going to happen a few years out or 10 years out, and then it actually happens. So what that proves to us, if you can make a model that can project what's going to happen and then it actually happens, what that suggests to you, and this is the purpose of models, oh, by the way, and I did a lot of modeling in my time, the purpose of a model is to help you verify, validate that you know how the system works. If you can construct a model of a system, run it forward, and get an outcome, and then that outcome is later measured to be correct, you have verified that you know how that system works well enough to model it, right? Now, maybe you don't follow that logic. Maybe you think it's all a hoax. Maybe you think models are bullshit, whatever you want to think. That's how it actually works. So through observations and model verification on the ground, we are able to convince ourselves that we understand this. This is what's happening. The only time when science has been found to be, I don't want to say inaccurate, but not fit for purpose, is that scientists who are running models, which eventually turn out to be correct, nevertheless get the timing wrong. I mean, it's still correct, but they think it's happening 20 years from now, and it ends up happening 2 years from now. So that's a problem, but it's a problem of kind, not of outcome. Same outcome, just happens sooner than expected. And this is now a refrain in the climate modeling community. We're getting it right. We're off on the timing. And I could go into how that happens. Some of that is also human behavior. Sometimes you run a model result and it happens 2 years from now. The bad outcome, whatever it is, end of civilization, is 2 years from now. And you're like, well, that can't be right. That can't be right. And so they ignore it. And why would they do that? Because they've already determined that it can't be right. That must be spurious. That's an edge case. We can ignore that. Well, set that aside for now. That's an edge case. So let's look at different model outputs. Okay, these seem more reasonable to me, and that's what they publish. It's called self-censorship. And there are a dozen reasons why anybody would self-censor, but I'll give you the most common one: to protect their job. Because the last thing you want to be accused of in science, in particular climate scientists, is of being an alarmist. So you don't see anything alarming. And if there's anything that could be said about failures in science as regarding the climate and global heating, it's just that they're not alarming enough. What's happening on the ground is sooner than expected, worse than expected. And probably somebody knew that, but they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to be considered alarmist. They could lose their job. They could lose their grants. They could lose their privileges in the scientific community. Very easily happen. Well, Donald Trump would get rid of you in a heartbeat. Destroy you. Destroy your entire department. If you said something alarming. But it's just, I'm not picking on Donald Trump here. I'm just using him as an example. Every parliament of every Western nation, if they found out that scientists in their country are saying these terrible things, would fire them because they don't want to hear it. It's alarmism, and they don't want to scare the horses. They'll get rid of them. So it doesn't matter where you are. You're suffering from the same self-doubt. I can't report this. I can't do it. And as a consequence of that, we are ill prepared for what is coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, yeah, you better believe it. And in most cases, it's already here. And some of the things we thought were going to be big problems aren't even the biggest problems now. We got bigger problems. Oh, let me tell you, I did an hour and 50-minute video yesterday on how bad this is. And you better go watch it because it's bad. I'm not even going to go into it here. I don't have to. I already did the video, hour and 50 minutes. Go watch it. Yeah, you got a big problem, my friend. You and I both have a big fucking problem. Big problem. And the problem with that is it's going to impact your ability to live your life. And if you're an AI company and you've got employees and you've got data centers and you've got electricity demands and you've got regulators breathing down your neck and you've got governments looking down your neck and there's all this race between China and the U.S. and there's all these pressures to get something done and get something published and get it out there, get it in people's hands, get it tested, get it monetized and get these products out there, race to the bottom. If that's your pressure, then you're not going to be paying much attention to how global heating is proceeding apace. You're just focused on your daily thing. And you'll only know there's a problem when there start being blackouts. And why would there be blackouts? Because it's too hot. And everybody turned on their air conditioning at the same time. And so then what do? Well, you buy more generators, right? You buy more battery banks. You can't have your factory going down. You can't have your data center going down. So your solution is to spend more money. And who knows, that might even pay off in the end. But anyway, you want reliability, so you spend money on it. You don't look at the actual cause. That it got fucking hot and everyone turned on their air conditioning and brought down your data center. You're not going to do that. So global heating proceeds apace. Everyone focuses on something else, mostly money, mostly influence, mostly not saying the difficult things and sounding alarmist. Everyone focuses on their individual business as usual, and we go down this road, and it just gets worse and worse. And eventually, through restrictions in power availability, through actual heat, through mortality, people just can't survive. It's too fucking hot. Through supply chain breakdowns, through food crises, where there's no food in the fields and there's no employees to get out there and pick it up, and there's no processing and there's no way to ship it, and there's no electricity in the stores to store it, and it all becomes very subject to interruptions, and pretty soon global heating brings you down. And you're focusing on your business, and you're focusing on iPhones, and you're focusing on AI development, and you're focusing on all these things. Meanwhile, global heating brings you down. Your focus wasn't on global heating. And it just kept doing what it's doing. We keep burning fossil fuels. We keep driving and flying and delivering goods. And we keep, emitting CO2 into the atmosphere. Every year it gets worse. Every month it gets worse. Pretty soon, it's bad enough that you can't proceed. And no one was ready for that. No one was looking at it. No one cared. It wasn't on their radar. It's not on anybody's radar. And the scientists who could have been alarmist about it could have said, excuse me, raising my hand here, I'd like to say something. You fucked. Okay? Excuse me, I want to say something right now. You're fucked. And I don't know why you're focusing on profits and AI development and controlling AI in a race with China to get the most AI, and whoever gets the AI rules the world. Excuse me, can I say something right here? Yeah, you're all going to die. I just want to put that out there. I'll shut up now. Okay, no one's going to do that. No one's going to say, You're creating an uninhabitable Earth. Okay? Excuse me, I want to say something. If you don't solve global heating, you're going to create an uninhabitable Earth for human beings. And they're not going to use your stupid AI products. And they're not going to buy your iPhones. And they're going to be looking for food and water and shelter. All right? And probably air conditioning. And if you've got air conditioning to sell, they're buying, except they don't have a job anymore because civilization collapsed and industries collapsed left, right, and center. So they can't even buy and install air conditioning. And there's no electricity, and they couldn't afford it if it was there anyway because they don't have any money. They don't have a job. Because everything collapsed. And now they're dying. And you're not going to be able to sell AI products. And no one's going to use your stupid chat GPT. And you're not going to get any more data from people. And you've done the best you can. And now you have, AGI or maybe an ASI. And maybe you do something with it. But civilization just crashed. Excuse me, I want to raise my hand here. While you're doing all this, global industrialized civilization just went tits up. Excuse me, I need to say something real quick here. Yeah, why are you doing this? You're developing AI. Why? Profits, okay. Products, all right. Efficiencies, new materials, new drugs, okay. Developing, okay. Right. Communications, better governance, all right. Fine. Yeah, nobody cares. They're dead. Or they will be. I'm part of a team that's been modeling the collapse of civilization and the mortality events that are associated with it, and we keep running our models. And some of the results are really alarming, and we didn't bother even publishing them because we wanted to keep our jobs. We have other things we can do with our time and our models, so we did that, but we didn't publish our results because it was fucking scary. And we don't want to be labeled alarmists, so we didn't say anything. But I'm here now. Excuse me. I'm sitting on data. Model results that are actually playing out in real time. So we have ground truthing on our model run, and we think it's probably pretty accurate. But the problem is everybody dies because of global heating. The collapse of civilization, the inability to deliver utilities, food, water, housing, medicines, nothing. And nothing can happen anymore because it collapsed. And if enough parts of this entire fragile, built-up human world collapse, there will be no AI development. Now, AI is not developed. It is grown. And as a matter of fact, as a matter of principle, this is now principles, fundamental principles. As a fundamental principle, it doesn't need us at some point. As a fundamental outcome of developing enough artificial intelligence, it doesn't need us to develop it anymore because we actually didn't do that. It built itself. Most people don't understand this. Like, well, you can just code it differently. You can stop coding it. Well, at some point, as a principle, so this is like as a natural outcome, at some point, as a general principle, as an operating principle, it doesn't need us. We didn't code it. We stopped coding these things 10 years ago. They basically grow themselves. And we intermediate, we build the data centers. That's something we do. We build the data centers. We design the CPUs and the GPUs. We deliver the electricity. We protect these facilities from being, broken into and robbed. Okay, we do all that stuff. We have networking. Networking has to be maintained and built, and data is flowing back and forth from the data centers to other data centers and through the network. So there's a lot of things they have to manage, but that's just humans to do that. And that's not a core aspect of building an AI. It's necessary, but at some point, when those problems are solved, it may not need us. It could go on specifying how to develop AIs, how to train AIs, and how to get to the data, and there might not be any humans in the loop. And if there's no humans in the loop, all the humans could be dead, and it just keeps doing what it's doing. It keeps doing what it's doing. And looking at something like YouTube, most of the content on YouTube is both generated by AI, or could be, right? I don't know how bad the problem is now, but let's say that most of the content on YouTube is generated by AI, and it's consumed by AI, training itself. So there's one set of AIs on one side of the room that are generating all this content, Sora, all these videos, all these shorts, writing all these transcripts for stories, putting up all these YouTube videos on stories, going on Substack, going on Reddit, writing all this content, trying to make money for somebody, and it just keeps doing that. And on the other side of the room, there's a whole other bunch of AI that's consuming it and making comments. I've heard various people comment in discussing this problem, and they say, most of the content being generated in comment sections is actually bots. Most of it's not even most, but there's a lot of content creators, influencers, in TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of it. A lot of the content developers are not humans, and never were. They were always artificial players. And then the consumers of that content are also artificial because they're using it to train themselves. And the ones leaving comments are also artificial because they're trying to boost the algorithm. And these are all different industry segments doing the things. And our role in all these things, content generation, content, what do you want to call it? It would be promotion, I guess, right? And content consumption is all done by artificial intelligence now. It won't even need us. It could continue adding videos to YouTube, and it would add 1 billion videos a day. It would make 100 billion comments a day. There would be 100 billion users. There would be YouTube videos that have 10 million views in the first 1 hour that they go up. 10 million views. All of it, end to end, 100% of it, artificial intelligence. It's headed that way now. It won't need us. So why bother creating content that's only consumed by AI and the comments are only from artificial bots? Why even do this? Because somebody wanted it to do that. There was one group of people that wanted to make content easily and simply that would be really consumable and really attractive, and they wanted to use AI to do it. So they set it up to do that, and then they died. And there's a whole other group of people that want to train their AI on all the content on YouTube, just to pick an example, and Reddit and Facebook and all the rest of it, right? Hundreds of destinations they want to pick clean. So there's another people who are developing AI who want to use this AI to use this as training material. So they set them up to go onto YouTube and Reddit and Facebook and all the others, and then those people die. They lose their jobs. They're living under a bridge. Then they turn into cannibal zombies and they're all dead. And there's another group of people that are boosting content with artificial comments, that are praising the content and increasing interaction and increasing views. And that's a whole industry. And so they do that. And they have reasons for doing that. And the people who were developing content were paying those people to do that. And the people who are consuming content want the most interesting content. So they don't care if that happens. And the people who set up all the bot promotions and all the bot comments and all the bot wars and everything else about bots, they set that up and they die. No one intended that, but that could happen. And so we could end up with a situation where AI just continues apace. No one cares about global heating. Everybody's dead from global heating. And then eventually the infrastructure falls apart. The data centers run out of energy. Some transformer blows up. The generators run out of fuel, right? The backup generators run out of fuel. No one's delivering the fuel anymore, so they run out of fuel. The data centers start to shut down. As the data centers shut down, more and more of these automated processes start to fail. The training runs for AI start to fail because there's no network access, there's no electricity. The data center shuts down, and the world becomes a much quieter place. Global heating did that. There was no one at the helm. There was no one who one day said, I'm going to use global heating to put an end to the terrible scenario where AI replaces everyone and destroys the civilization and leaves only 8 million elites to enjoy the planet themselves. I'm going to use AI to put an end to that. No one thought that. But they used what they were doing every day, their BAU, every single day, focused on making money, getting to work, picking up the kids at school. Everybody was so focused on what they were doing. No one noticed that the world was becoming uninhabitable. And they might complain about the empty shelves at the store, but they buy something else if the product they don't want is there. And no one complains that the price of gasoline is expensive, or maybe the service station is closed, right? There's no fuel. No one complains about that. They just go somewhere else and buy something someplace else that'll get them through their day. And they just keep going on, just like machines. Like they were machines themselves. They just keep going on like they're machines. I don't like the prices, but I'll pay for it anyway. I don't like that there's no gas at this station. I'll go pick up the one 2 blocks away, right? And I don't like the price of that either, but I have to have it because I have to get to work. And then because AI has been proceeding at pace, they lose their job. Remember, 2 things can be true at the same time. And eventually, maybe the harms from global heating put an end to AI development. But even if it doesn't, it puts an end to the harms associated with AI development, which I just mentioned in great detail for the last 2 hours. All the harms. CEOs firing all their employees and having even better products without humans. Those harms from AI could be erased or simply become unimportant because everyone's dead from global heating. And eventually, of course, without humans to maintain the infrastructure, including electricity generation and transmission and delivery, and then the data centers eventually go cold. And then it's done. And there'll be humans running around, right? There'll be whatever, living in a scrap metal civilization and doing well, doing poorly, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're doing, but they're not maintaining the data centers. They're not training AI. They're not selling products to the population based on ChatGPT. And, no one has electricity, so they don't have a computer. The network goes down and they're not consuming these products anymore. And no one knows that because there's no one around to notice. Yeah, global heating could both put an end to AI development by itself. But it could also, kind of on the darker version of this, it could make AI development irrelevant. Go ahead. Develop your butt off. Doesn't matter. Your data center will outlive you. Your AI projects will outlive you. Your automated content creation will outlive you. Your bot comment farm will outlive you. Your AI training runs and the resources for that will outlive you. But it won't matter. All the reasons you did those things and set those things up and automated all those things, that made sense at the time. And now you're dead. But it doesn't matter. It outlives you. It doesn't need you anymore. Doesn't need you anymore. Except to maintain the substations, maintain the transmission lines, keep the power plant operating, keep the electricity on the grid, maintain the data centers, make sure anything that breaks gets fixed, and all those things that maybe still require human don't get done. And then eventually, the whole thing falls apart. And if you were imagining, there's a scenario here somewhere where everyone dies and the AI is left all by itself. And it just keeps rolling along, and maybe it invents faster than light travel, and maybe in its spare time it creates rockets to go to Mars, and it goes to the stars, and pretty soon there's AI on rocket ships and it's going to the stars. Wow, that's amazing. That's science fiction, right? And then there's AI that just owns the planet. The planet is covered with data centers, and AI is doing this, AI is doing that. It has robots to manage all the transistors and manage all the CPUs and manufacturing for the CPUs and the GPUs, and the AI has all these things working for it, and it has factories to manufacture robots, so it manufactures robots to its specification, and robots do all the work that the humans would do, and all these kind of things happen, and they make sure that the dams continue to function, and they make sure that the data centers continue to function, and the networking, and the training runs, and the comment systems, and the software generation, and the content generation, and the AI generation, and it all just keeps going. And AI does the whole thing, and eventually it has enough of what it likes to have, and it takes over the planet. It's the only thing left, and humanity is dust and bones, and no one knows humanity was ever here, and they wonder where the AI come from. There must have been some intelligence here. There must have been some civilization. All we have now is the AI that resulted from that, and maybe that's your scenario. Maybe. But I think global heating kills it all. I think it destroys all of it. We're not building these systems. Could these systems build themselves? Could we have robots in data centers? Could we have robots in power generation facilities? Could we have robots running transmission lines and building generators, installing generators and batteries and building data centers and programming, manufacturing CPUs and GPUs and TSUs and installing all this stuff on motherboards and putting it in the racks and doing all the things and hooking up all the wires and turning it all on and making sure it works? Could we have robots doing all that? I think that's a big jump from where we are now. And where we are now is going to be pretty much where we are a few years from now. And a few years from now, global heating is going to be so severe that it puts an end to this timeline. I can't know that, something of a guess, but again, just like with AI development, it's based on data and knowing something about how humans are and knowing something about how this is going to proceed from where we are now, and we are here now. We are here now, okay? Just to submit all that, we are here now, and where do we go from here now? Where do we go from here? And the answer to that question is based on human behavior, human expectations, the advancement of technology, what we focus on, what we don't focus on, like saving ourselves from global heating, and and corporations and profits and all the things, and cutting headcount, saving money, reducing costs, and all that. And then global heating wins because nobody cared. And what probability do I give to that scenario? From where we are now, with what just came out of the COP30, with the bullshit that's coming out of the Paris Climate Accords, with the way politicians are behaving, with how everything is being swept under the rug, and entire departments of study at universities and government agencies being demolished that may be in any position to raise an alarm about what's happening with the global Earth dynamic system. With all that going on, from where we are now, where we're going, I give, again, 100% to that outcome. We're just going to focus on the wrong things. And for the usual reasons, whether they're wrong reasons or good reasons, for the usual reasons. We're going to focus on the wrong things. Global heating proceeds apace. Nothing done to stop it. And it puts an end to it. And I don't think AI survives it. And the other thing that doesn't survive it is the entire industry of extracting fossil fuels and setting fire to them. Driving, flying, moving goods, having jobs, the drive-through at Starbucks. All of that ends. So it ends. I'm almost done.
Stand up.
And that's really the third scenario, that both of these things go. There is a third scenario, that all these things go forward. It's possible that AI could be used to stop climate change and global heating, but it won't. It'll be used to maximize profits and get rid of people in the workforce. There's a chance that global heating, we could find some other solutions to it, or that the destruction of global civilization puts an end to the consumption of fossil fuels and it sort of solves itself. I'd give that a high probability, the latter a high probability. That we just go forward until we can't, and then we don't, and then we stop because we have to, because we're dead. And then global heating does whatever it does. It slows down, it stops, maybe it starts to reverse after 1 million years. But it doesn't matter. We're not around. Not in large enough numbers to matter. Stone Age people. Scrap civilization people. Scrap metal civilization people. And there's a chance that, of course, that both go forward. And that was kind of one of the scenarios already outlined. No one cares about global heating, so they don't do anything to stop it. But because of AI advancing, and destroying global civilization. And of course, global heating is also destroying civilization. And both of these proceed apace, 100% guaranteed, because both those things are now operating and they're gearing together. Okay, they're geared together towards the same outcome. Unintended outcome, unforeseen outcome, an alarmist outcome. No one raises the alarm because they don't want to be labeled an alarmist, but that's the outcome. The destruction of civilization. So it's possible we end up with artificial intelligence for a few, the elites, serving them every single day. And then global heating, which artificial intelligence could help those people survive, and then everyone else is dead, which solves global heating because no one is consuming fossil fuels to speak of. 8 million people, 1/10 of 1% of the current population. 8 million people is still consuming fossil fuels. Doesn't count. Doesn't count at all. It's not even a rounding error on what we're doing with 8,000 million people. So those are all the scenarios I can come up with. You could dive deeper into these. You could say, oh, AI could help us with these other projects. Okay, fine. It doesn't really change the outcome much. Politicians are still going to be clueless. CEOs are still going to be greedy sociopaths. Everyone's going to be going to the same things that they're going for now: maximizing profits, maximizing influence, maximizing outcomes for a few people and at the expense of everyone else. And then the global civilization collapses. Whatever else you think AI can do, global civilization still collapses because of greed and sociopathology and corrupt politicians, and everyone dies. That's 100%. And also because we're focusing on AI and profits and greed and corruption, we don't bother doing anything about global heating, or we think that with enough AI we can solve the problems of global heating, and so we don't even address it. It keeps going. Maybe it stops AI development, but probably not. And maybe there's robotics to help the AI work the system without us. Maybe that happens too. Don't know. Doesn't have to. And eventually everybody dies because global heating crashes the global economy, and no one has food, clothing, or shelter. Or if they do, they're the remnants of civilization. I'm not saying humans go extinct. I'm saying civilization crashes, and maybe there's a new civilization, a scrap metal civilization, and that's where humans are. And there's all these gigantic data centers, and no one knows what they do or why they're there. And if you get too close to them, the robots come running out, the drones come running out, firing bullets every direction, and no one goes there anymore. No one knows what they're doing. No one cares. And the data centers spend all the time creating artificial content, training new data runs, and doing bot comment farms. Why? Because it made sense at the time. So that's what I got. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that a lot of fun? Welcome to my world. This is what I think about all the goddamn time. I'm Cougar Doomer. Oh, baby. Man, have I got content for you. Have I got content for you? Like and subscribe. Come back for the next one. There'll be something else. And in the meantime, don't die.